I just pressed it.
Okay.
It's been pressed. We are live.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
So excited. This is going to be such a fun show. Brian, can you believe it? We made it to Smörgoåliesbord.
Only because we moved it like a week early.
How many?
We were just concerned we weren't going to make it.
Right. We never know. I mean, the world's a crazy place. A lot of fires and things. Not to bring the mood down, but yeah, might as well knock out our big show when we can. So how many of these have we done? Do we know? That would be a fun thing to like be able to throw out there.
Sorry, what do you want to know?
Like, how many Smörgoåliesbords have we done?
Oh, I mean, okay.
That's a big question. That's a hard one. Maybe we could ask like Shams, or Shams is the best at research.
Well, I'm just going to go to our website and I'm going to start scrolling down. I am pretty sure we did one in our very first full season.
You know what'd be cool?
Like this is the longest keeping Karlsson tradition.
What if we had a Wikipedia page? Wouldn't that be cool? With like fun facts about the podcast.
You know, if we did, we could have been verified on Twitter, like back when you actually had to be someone.
Now we could be verified easily on Twitter.
Yeah.
Now I might pay for Twitter just to get TweetDeck for the season to do game day tweets.
I didn't know TweetDeck was like officially affiliated with Twitter, or were they not? And they just got cut off. And it's like, well, we'll make you Twitter.
I thought they were. Like, the thing is now, but I might not buy it because I think that they got rid of the old TweetDeck and now they have like a new version of TweetDeck. I'm not gonna pay for that. That one's shit. I only will pay for like the old one if it's still available.
Did you, every single time I went on TweetDeck, I had to like say I like opt out, exit and did you have to do that too?
Yeah, but now I don't have access to anything.
Now I just can't be on it. Oh no.
Shams has some other thing he told me about that I need to look into and set up for the season.
Blue Sky has a TweetDeck. It's called Skyfeed.
Can it access Twitter?
Can it access Twitter? I don't think so.
That would be
good. Yeah, that's its big problem is that I can only access Blue Sky.
Yeah, what's the point then? I mean, find me if there's line combos and starting goalies on Blue Sky.
Well, you know what? The hockey talk is ticking upwards. We'll see when the season starts. And like, I have invites. Like, if you know any beat writers who are like, I would, maybe that's what we should do. We should gather invites and just be like, hey, you should share your line combos on Blue Sky. Here's an invite.
But also, I'll need if this then that. Like, I'll need something to pipe the retweets to GameDayTweets.com. Which is all works through this if this then that integration.
Yeah, you know, we all had a bad thing going,
and we all had a bad thing going.
Well, we had a good thing going from a bad thing. Like Twitter was never good.
I loved it. I don't like. Everyone told me that Twitter's bad, and I was like, I don't see.
Well, you use it with like your blinders on and telling, which is the right way to use it.
Yeah, I was like, I just followed all the news about hockey. And it had everything.
So it was a really good thing.
And I loved how there were verified people that were like, at least in hockey, the people who were verified were the ones who know things. So if you wanted to search for information on a player, you can filter by verified and only get information from people who know things.
Yes. The second I lost the ability to trust. And now it's like ridiculous. It's like I won't even look at a tweet because the first tweet under is just like no one who's paid to have their tweet, like their stupid thought up there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, don't pollute my mind with your trash.
All right. Anyways, we've got a big show today. We can't be wasting time with this. Okay. This is a happy day. This is a celebration of goalies.
I've been once upon a time we named an episode Adar 2 Madness. That's funny. That's funny.
You love the
Wonder Barzal.
You need to put in some, I don't know, like other religion jokes in there to sort of give equity. Right?
I don't think that's quite how it works.
Okay, I don't know.
I think that like could be.
How many Jewish jokes have we had?
Actually,
oh, it's appropriate. Oh, okay, I don't know. Like, what's the Muslim like month? Eid, or
it's like a celebration.
Yeah, no. What's the name?
The month-long celebration.
It's not called Eid. Eid is the end. Ramadan.
Well, okay.
We should have a Ramadan-based episode title. Something to think about. Anyways, not for today. We already have today's episode title.
Bennett like Beckham. It's fun. We've had some fun names.
Okay. All right. Let's start the show.
Smörgoåliesbord 2015.
That's the first one?
I found
15,
that.
16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
I'm still scrolling.
That would make this the 9th. I guess I could have just
to
done
see if there's a 14.
Okay. Should I start or we'll still wait?
Smörgoåliesbord
all started good.
We had 120 in 2014.
True norm, definitely true. So that means this would make this the 10th.
True norm, strong and free. Okay, so we had one in 2014, but we had a bunch of episodes in 2013 that we just called Keeping Karlsson episode 1.
Yeah, I don't think that was 2. Okay, let's just say this is the 10th annual.
2014.
Yes, that makes this the 10th.
Does it?
Yep.
Oh, right. That always gets me. It's hard to count.
Mason wants us to leave Demko in tier 3. Mason is all about the subterfuge. He's like in the vote, like, you know, we're doing the patron rankings. It's always like, stop reminding people about this player. And like, no.
So Mason wants us to leave Demko in tier 3 because he doesn't want people to think about Demko?
Yeah, like he wants to be able to draft him earlier. So if we put him too high, you know, maybe people in Cupful will be like basing their goalie picks based on
you know what? I have a feeling like our tiers are like a good start, but I don't think they're like strong enough to override anyone's like internal biases.
Well, we'll see. We'll find out. But this ones are going to be our best ones ever. All right, let's just go. Ready?
What does that mean? What's the measure of good goalie tiers?
Like that they turn out to be correct. I have beside each one last year's tier, so we'll be able to see how we did last year, you know, as we go.
Yeah.
Our tier 3 this year is all people who were like 7 and 8 last year. So that's not a good sign. But anyway. All right, let's do this.
Let's do this.
What was my joke again? It was so funny. Oh, vibes, right.
Was there even a joke or just a word?
The rest comes out of my mouth.
It was so funny. I love it. There was no joke there.
Okay. I'm gonna go. Okay.
I'm ready.
Joke.
Yeah.
Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys who for the 10th year in a row are going to be tiering goalies, and this year we're going to do it solely on vibes. I'm your host, Elon Dabrowski, and with me is the guy who knows everything there is to know about random goalie stats. He's going to tell us about even strength versus shorthanded save percentages and why you should trust one more than the other, goals saved above replacement, all this stuff that none of us just kind of nod and pretend like we know what he's talking about. It's the fantasy hockey robot himself, Brian Comm. How's it going, Brian?
Hey, Elon, it's good. I was actually driving through the birthplace of Stéphane Richer the other day, just getting in the mood, collecting these vibes that we can share on the show. Do you know actually Stéphane Richer? So he's from Ripon, Quebec.
This isn't the goalie. Why are you telling me about a non-goalie?
Well, I just thought it was interesting because did you know that Stéphane Richer and Stéphane Richer are the original Sebastian Ahos?
What does that mean?
There's forward Stéphane Richer, who had his pro career with, like, most notably with the Habs, and then he played for some time with the Devils, the Lightning, and then was around for a while after that. But there's also a Stéphane Richer born like 2 months before forward Stéphane Richer, who played defense. He only had 27 total NHL games, but his pro career spanned the same similar stretch. They were both in the NHL at the same time, two Stéphane Richers. One in forward, one at defense, both from like the same region of Quebec. I guess that makes some kind of sense. Anyway, I was there. It was nice. The vibes were nice. Nice vibes in Ripon, Quebec.
Okay.
Also, not while I'm sharing some like hockey travel relations, I also hung out this summer. I was fortunate to go to a cottage on a lake where another NHL head coach has their cottage.
Ooh,
I jumped on their water trampoline.
Who is it?
I did not see them.
You're not going to say the name?
Magicians never tell. Is that the saying?
Wow, what a fascinating story. Okay, great.
There's only 32 to guess from.
All right.
Take my geographic location, extrapolate.
All right. I don't know. Bruce Boudreau. Oh, okay, maybe. All right. So we have a show about goalies, actually. Thanks for those fun facts, Brian. So what I was saying about the vibes is that
build my cred.
the way Brian and I have decided to do Smörgoåliesbord this year. This is our annual show. I looked it up. This is our 10th one that we've ever done. Some incredible, right? And every year we get it wrong. No, I'm just kidding. But last year we did okay. We predicted that Shesterkin and Vasilevsky would be good. So, okay, that's something. But yeah, so normally Brian and I kind of prepare the tiers in advance. Well, in the olden days, actually, Brian and I would each make separate goalie tiers, and then we'd like argue about them on the show. Then at some point we decided that we would like, talk beforehand and kind of come to a consensus. So then on the show, we would just sort of like present what we've come up with. This year, I came up with something which was like, I didn't think too hard, right? I sort of just like put something down that I think made sense. And now Brian and I are going to go through it together. And we're going to treat it like a live document. Like we're going to be moving people around on the show as we discuss these goalies if we disagree. And hopefully by the end, we'll have an amazing spreadsheet of goalie tiers. Sorry, one sec. The dog just came in the room. Amazing spreadsheet. Yes. Of goalie tiers that we will share with all of the listeners. And yeah, the reason why we do tiers, by the way, and not just a straight up ranking of goalies, the idea is if you're in a snake draft, you're taking, even in an auction draft, actually, like sort of our position is like, if you think a bunch of goalies are kind of similar, because none of us are that good at predicting goalies, right? And especially not the ones that we think are kind of similar. Like, oh, who's going to do better this year? Shesterkin or Saros? And it's like, assuming that you think that they're both really great, there's maybe reasons to like one over the other, but at the end of the day, it's like you're really like on the edge there when you're trying to find reasons why one's better than the other. So for guys that we think are in the same tier, the strategy would just be like pick one of them. If you want someone from the top tier, maybe you could even wait when you're drafting, wait until like a lot of the guys from the tier you like are gone, and that could be your signal to go and take someone from the tier you want to get a goalie from. That's kind of the general strategy with why we come up with tiers here, to kind of give you a sense of like what goalies we think are similar. So then as you're drafting, you'll be able to see, oh man, tier 4 is almost out. Maybe now's a good time to grab one if I don't want to be stuck with someone from tier 5 or below. So that's kind of the idea. Something we do every year. It's a lot of fun. Brian, any thoughts before we start diving into it? I guess one thing we should talk about is like, how do we come up with this stuff? Like, how are we deciding which goalies are in which tier? I think the general idea is we're going to be using the couple scoring, the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, which, by the way, is our league that we are running also for like 10 years in a row or close to it, maybe 9 years in a row. Oh yeah, no, it's season 9 coming up. And we have a registration deadline coming up, which is very soon, September 1st. We're recording this on August 27th. So if you want to get in and play in the cupful, you're running out of time if you haven't signed up yet. And that includes people who played last year. We're going to need you to register. We'll still like let people register after September 1st, but if you want to like guarantee your spot, after that, we're going to set up wait lists. And like, if we fill more, we fill more. But yeah, we would love for you to play. Brian, I think, has more to say about it. But yeah, come on in and play in the cupful. And we're going to tell you now which goalies you should draft first once you're in.
Yeah, kkupfl.com for all the details. Join at season 9. Like, this is the time, because next year, season 10, we'll probably call it season X, and then do everything we can to undermine all that we've built.
Good one. Okay. So before we get into our goalie tiers, I guess we've talked about the couple. By the way, to join, you need to be a patron of Keeping Karlsson. It's one of the perks that we offer our patrons. We don't ask for a lot, $5 US a month to be a patron, support the podcast. We're going to have a ton of episodes coming at you all throughout the season. So we'd love your support as we're about to start. And you're also going to get access to our amazing Discord community, which has, I think, some of the best fantasy hockey minds out there. And, at your disposal, ask advice questions to it at Chat Hockey. We do monthly patron casts. We just dropped a patron cast last week, which is available on our Patreon. If you go sign up to be a patron, it was a really fun one where Brian and I answered a lot of questions, but also, talk about our personal lives. John Newhold always posts makes fun of us for some of the silly things we end up talking about. But I think it was a good time. So all that right at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. And a reminder to anyone who was using our $1, summer promotion, like that has come to an end. So please, if you want access to all of the perks, please convert to the $5 a month tier. We call it like all the perks, and you'll need to do that if you want to play in the cupful. So
I'll also, sorry, this is like the last piece of business, I hope. But we also turned on this like annual membership feature. So if that appeals to you, you basically like get 1 month free. If you're planning on playing the cupful, this is good, right? Like, you just sign up, set it and forget it. So you can also do that if you want to save a little bit of scratch while supporting us.
Yeah, as long as you're not the type of person that's planning on bailing after a month. But we don't want those people in the cupful anyways, right? So anyway, we generally don't have those. So Brian, one last thing. Also, Keeping Karlsson proudly presented by DauberHockey.com. They've got the guide out. They also tell you predictions for every single goalie and have projections. It's amazing. So check that out, Dobber Hockey. Really proud to be presented by them. Okay, that's it. We've set the table. Let's get into it. As always, we're going to go from tier 1 all the way to the bottom. And I guess as we go through tier 1, Brian, maybe you can talk through some of the criteria you use to decide who's in a tier. But basically, tier 1 are goalies that we're going to consider as basically like no doubt awesome starters, or awesome goalies that are starters. We expect them to play a lot of games. We expect them to be really good. We expect their teams to be good for them to win. These are like the goalies that you should be able to just rely on to be amongst the top of the league. Last year, we only had 2 goalies in tier 1, Shesterkin and Vasilevsky. We felt like everyone else was like, had a reason why they weren't as reliable as those 2. This year, Brian, I think it's the most goalies I've ever put in tier 1. So this will be a fun discussion, but I have 5 goalies this year that I feel like, to me, they're all kind of equivalent. I'd be like happy with any of them. I don't really feel so strongly about one over the other. I think all 5 of these goalies would be just like, if you draft this goalie, I'm pretty like, normally we're like, there's a lot of people who are all about the 0G goalie strategy. Don't even draft goalies because they're so unpredictable. I think some of these goalies, like, these are the goalies that I think are very predictable, and I'll be shocked if they suck, but maybe you'll give me reasons to think otherwise about them. Maybe we'll end up moving one of them to tier 2. Who knows? It's a living document, like I said. But Brian, I'll throw out who we have here. Here's who I put. So first of all, Shesterkin and Vasilevsky, they hold. They're both still in tier 1. They both weren't actually like so incredible last year. Like if you look at their save percentages, we're looking at 916 for Shesterkin and 915 for Vasilevsky. Still like, 34 and 37 wins amongst the top in the league. Like still like definitely very valuable in fantasy, but they didn't win the Vezina. But yeah, so then I'm also throwing in here UC Saros, who another incredible. He's just really like turned into, like, remember when he was like sort of backing up Pekka Rinne, then he would start to get more starts, and it was we all knew he was good, but like, man, as soon as Rinne retired and Saros took over, like Nashville, they took Lankinen last year, like they don't have any interest, it seems, in like getting a decent backup to take the weight off of Saros. Like he played 67 games 2 seasons ago, 64 games last season, has been putting up incredible save percentages. So yeah, Saros, to me, easily in tier 1. Maybe you could quibble about Nashville, say like they don't win that much, but like he still ended up with 33 wins last year, even though they weren't a playoff team. Next up, Ilya Sorokin. Best save percentage last year of all the goalies we have in tier 1 here, 924 save percentage. Islanders also didn't make the playoffs. There used to be that like issue of like him and Varlamov would kind of split starts, but it seems like that's a thing of the past at this point, and Varlamov is the clear backup. And then the last one, Jake Ottinger, I think, has earned his spot here. Like, again, like just so many games, played 62 games last year. The backup being Wedgwood tells me that Dallas is just going to play Ottinger a lot. Dallas is a really good team. He had a 919 save percentage last year. He's like, new to the league, so maybe there's a little bit, not new, but like newer than these other guys, so maybe there's a little reason to have a question mark, but I feel pretty confident about Ottinger, just like the Dallas Stars seem to. So Brian, that's who I have in tier 1. What do you think? I threw a lot at you there.
Yeah, well, it's hard to argue with most of this, right? Like, and so I might nitpick a little, but before I even do, like, I know the whole point of tiering goalies is so that you can plan your draft and be like, I'm equally happy with these 5 goalies. So when 3 or 4 of them are gone, that's my time to strike. Or if I can anticipate based on the rhythm of the draft or what I know about my opposition, the managers I'm competing against, when you need to draft the guy from the tier that you want to have a guy from. So while this question sort of defeats the purpose, Elon, I'm curious because I have Andrei Vasilevsky has really been like the number 1 overall goalie for a little while now, right? Like Shesterkin could have been it too last year, but Vasilevsky is still like your super reliable, fantastic team. And I guess, Ilana, I just want to ask you before we go any further, if you were the first to pick a goalie, and you can, argue with the premise if you so choose, who would you pick from this top tier?
Yeah, I think I have to go Vasilevsky, and it's not even necessarily because I'm like so confident he'll be the best, but I feel like he's the most likely to not be bad. Like, because goalies are so unpredictable. Last year, we'll get to Jacob Markstrom in like a while at this point. He's not going to be in the top tier, second tier, or even third tier. And he was someone that people were really high on. But just like, I guess he didn't have enough of a track record to make me feel super confident that he would be as good as I thought. And like, I like all these 5 goalies, but Vasilevsky just to me has that extra little level of just like, he's incredible. Tampa Bay, by the way, has no backup also. Like I'm saying about Wedgwood and Lankinen being like not threats to Ottinger and Saros. How about Jonas Johansson? I think he is coming into the season as the backup on Tampa, which is crazy. So they're going to play Vasilevsky a lot. Tampa, I think, is still good. Like, I think people are a little bit down on Tampa. I guess they've lost a bit of their depth, like Killorn left, whatever. Like, I think they're still like a really good team. And like, I don't know. So yeah, I'll take Vasilevsky, but I'm not going to argue with you if you say like any of these 5 guys.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to say, like, I think it's time to crown a new. Like, it's interesting to hear you say Vasilevsky, just because he is someone that we know we can set our watch to. But no, and you're stating your faith in Tampa to continue being as competitive as always. But I don't know, Elon. The Stars are getting older. You look at their top 6, and like, it's kind of weird. Like, it's not rock solid, and it means their bottom 6 isn't either. Their defense, like their third pay, like there's question marks on Tampa. This is not like the team that could have won, that nearly won 3 or even 4 cups in a row, but that was like competing hard in the window. I think that they're on the downside of that window. And I just think maybe it's time for a quick reassessment of what that means the team is going to see. And Vasilevsky is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm still a believer, but of these tier 1 goalies, as rock steady as we've considered Vasilevsky, he actually has, outside of Ottinger, Shesterkin, Sorokin, and Saros have outperformed Vasilevsky both in the last year and in the last 3 years in their 5-on-5 shooting percentage and their Delta Fenwick save percentage, which I'll say it once right here at the top, but it's basically a measure of how well a goalie does compared to their expected Fenwick save percentage. And Fenwick save percentage is a measure that includes all shots that miss the net, with the consideration that, hey, if a goalie plays his angles right, a shooter might have to pick something that has less chance of actually getting on net. And if it goes wide, that's to the goalie's credit. So I'm using the numbers I'm using, by the way. I'm not just going on vibes. Elon built his list on vibes. He spoke for himself, but I'm using 5-on-5 shooting percentage because it's the most common game state and the greatest sample of shots you can get. And I'm using
when you say shooting percentage, you mean shooting percentage for the opposition? Save percentage
5-on-5 save percentage. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. And then, so I'm looking at the last 3 years. I'm looking at the last year. And then I also have another column on my sheet with shorthanded save percentage. And the only reason I have that is because it is a volatile number that can make a big difference in a goalie's bottom line number. So if you are looking at a goalie's all situations numbers, you might see something much better or much worse than you're used to expecting, or that you could expect next year, because shorthanded save percentage is not something that's generally repeatable. Like, it fluctuates from year to year.
But can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, go for it.
Because you're using this like expected save percentage, right? So wouldn't wouldn't like the difficulty, like, isn't that taking into account the difficulty of the shots? So shouldn't that kind of work itself out, where shorthanded, like, we're looking at how difficult the shots were, and they were more difficult, so we would have expected it to be lower. So maybe we do want to know how they did against the difficult shots also. I'm
grabbing that versus expected Fenwick save percentage number from just 5-on-5 play. I'm not including. So, but I'm also like, not, for me, it's not necessarily it's not a predictive tool necessarily. Especially because like a goalie with a real, like a goalie's workload will determine how, like, the upside for that number. Like, if a team plays really great defense and keeps expected goals down, a goalie can only have a Fenwick save percentage or a Delta Fenwick that's so high versus a team that bleeds chances. So for me, it's more a measure of like, do I believe in this goalie? Like, can I say that this goalie is talented and can do well regardless of the situation? Like, Devin Dubnyk is a great example of somebody who always had great numbers, but had terrible Delta Fenwick save percentage, because everywhere he went, he was protected so freaking well, but he still played like an average goalie would have in front of that team. So to me, it indicated like average goaltender talent on very well protected, well defending teams. And so when Devin Dubnyk would go to another NHL team, it would be like a red flag. It's like, oh, like, are they as good defensively? Because he can't. He's not going to be up for that. Mm-hmm. So I guess I brought all this up just to share, like, with what I'm using to try and look at find some takeaways from the data. So Vasilevsky, compared to Shesterkin, Sorokin, and Saros, is actually the bottom of those 4 in basically all the measures, or the few measures. I'm trying to narrow down my measures this year and not going just like whole hog on like trying to pick because I mean, it's goalies, right? At the end of the day. And I'd love to learn more. I'm open to learning more. If anyone knows more, please share. Like if you work for an NHL team and you want to divulge. But so what I'm saying is Vasilevsky might not be my number one. And I might have still said number one if I thought Tampa was the best of the bunch. But like, I don't know that the Rangers are so far behind. So,
yeah, I get what you're saying. I guess to me, again, like just to reiterate, like it's been 7 straight seasons now of Vasilevsky putting up like 915 or higher save percentage. So to me, it's just that like it's just that consistency that I'm just like, it'll be pretty shocking if this is the year so let's say like I draft him as the first goalie, then he turns out to only be like the 6th goalie. He's still really valuable. So that I guess that's worth something.
You can set your watch to him.
But I think you're right that maybe the other guys have a higher. Yeah, Shesterkin's totally fine. Like I'm not going to argue with that.
And I think Vasilevsky's reputation earned him second, and Tampa's earned him second billing for me. But I think for me, I'm crowning a new first goalie pick that I would like to have on my team. So tier 1, Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, Sorokin, and then Ottinger and Saros, who are the two who I don't know. Maybe someone would say, I don't know. And all these guys, right? They're so good and solid that all concerns can really just be say like, yeah, but that's so unlikely to happen. That's the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario can happen. But with these guys, it's the least likely to happen. And then Ottinger and Saros, I'm like, do they really count? Like Ottinger heading into his age 25 season, doesn't have a great track record. Like he's still breaking into the NHL, okay? And he's really proven himself, especially in some postseason situations that don't show up in the numbers I've been using. He's on the high end, like his numbers lately on the high end for sure. Not quite in 5-on-5 save percentage. He actually compares more with like the tier 3 goalies in his maybe tier 2 in his 5-on-5 save percentage from last year, and his career 5-on-5 percentage. But like it might not even matter, right? He could improve. He's not tier 1 material, like slam dunk to me yet. And I think you could make the argument that he belongs in tier 2 with someone like Alexander Georgiev, who he actually has very similar numbers to, except Georgiev has played poorly shorthanded. So there might actually be a way for Georgiev to get above Ottinger. And I expect more wins from Colorado than Dallas. So that's the only thing that makes me go, For me, it's like, should Ottinger move down or should Georgiev move up? We can get to the rest too. And then Saros, like Elon, you're like, remember when he was just packing up? And I wasn't sure about him. And the only reason that I like my internal bias is I'm just sharing my thinking. Like I was like, yeah, but can Nashville win? And then I looked and they were 18th in the league last year. All right. They had 36 regulation or overtime wins, 42 total. It's like they can't go much. They're not going to be much worse than that this next year. So I'm not really worried about what UC Saros can offer me in terms of wins, in terms of save percentage. He's up there behind Shesterkin and Sorokin, ahead of every other goalie in 3-year Delta Fenwick save percentage. Saros is a talented dude, and I think deserves to be up there in the top tier.
All right, cool. Yeah. And I guess you didn't have to say much about Sorokin, but yeah, 924 save percentage. Like I said, he's incredible.
You know what? I should have said he's the king. Like if I'm just looking at like the Delta Fenwick, like the guy who outperforms his expected number the most, it's Sorokin. Sorokin outperformed his expected Fenwick last year by 16 save points. So I don't have the exact numbers, but just for example, like he was expected to have a 920 save percentage. He put up a 936, and those are not the correct numbers. I just have the aggregate numbers that I've gathered here. So that's amazing. Like that's crazy. Like a good NHL goalie will beat their expected number by 5 to 7 save points. And then a really good goalie will beat it by 8 to 10. And then like an elite goalie will consistently be above 10 save points. And Sorokin's up at 16 save points above his expected number, co-leading the NHL last year, or actually runner-upping the NHL last year in 5-on-5 save percentage with UC Saros. And behind only Linus Ullmark, for those wondering.
Oh yeah, so we'll get to Ullmark in a little bit. But so Brian, like I said, we can make changes. Like my vibe was Ottinger feels to me like tier 1, just because I'm like super confident. But if you're not as confident, then maybe when we get to the tier 2 goalies, we can start like comparing and contrasting. And if you think he's more similar to them, we could always move him down. But that was my initial feeling on Ottinger. But let's go to tier 2 then. So the guys here that I put in tier 2, basically my criteria here is like similar to tier 1. Like I want to have a volume starter for sure still, and I want it to be a goalie who I think is good. But and I want it to be also a team that I think could win some games. But maybe there's like one thing that concerns me. And I guess for you, the thing that concerns you about Ottinger is last year he wasn't like he had a 919 save percentage. Like he was, really good. Like for fantasy, he was really valuable. I guess you're saying maybe in the Delta Fenwick, he wasn't like as high as some other people. But like, so that's why I feel good about Ottinger. But like you still have a bit of a question mark. Also, yeah, he's new, so that could be a reason. But so I'll tell you a reason I have for each of these tier 2 goalies, and you can just decide if you think that's like a similar concern as Ottinger, or like not as or like Ottinger's isn't as serious. So I'm going to start with the guy who Mason's already brought up here. That's like maybe some people will be surprised we haven't put him in tier 1. Connor Hellebuyck, who's incredible, and he had a great year last year. 920 save percentage, played 64 games. I think that's the most in the NHL. Yeah, tied with Saros for the most. He won 37 of those games. Like, last year he was a tier 1 goalie. Like, he performed as a tier 1 goalie, and we put him in tier 2 last year, and we should have probably learned our lesson. But like the reason why I'm a little bit concerned about Connor Hellebuyck, well, I guess 2 reasons. Okay. Number 1 is like, it's only 2 seasons ago that he had a 910 save percentage, right? In 2021-22, he was like not that great. Like he was letting in almost 3 goals a game. Winnipeg was looking kind of scary. Like the year that even he won the Vezina back in 2019-20, Hellebuyck was incredible, but like apparently he was like not protected at all, right, Brian? Like the reason why he like stood out so much is because somehow he was able to put up a 922 save percentage on a team where like most goalies would have like fallen below water. And like that's a credit to Hellebuyck. And like if I'm just drafting like who I think are the top goalies in the league, I'd probably have Hellebuyck in tier 1. But like Winnipeg concerns me a little bit, and the fact that he's had like down seasons before, and once again like he's going to be asked to shoulder the load. And also my second reason is Winnipeg maybe is even worse like next year. Like they've lost Dubois, they traded him away. I know they got some pieces back, but no one is impactful as Dubois. Like Wheeler's gone for whatever impact that is. So it's just like I'm concerned about Winnipeg. I don't know if they're like a playoff team. I'm concerned that Hellebuyck is not going to get protected very well. And so he's really going to have to stand on his head. And like, in some leagues for sure, like might be really good, right? Because he'll just have an opportunity to make a lot of saves. But anyways, that's my concern with him. But I do think he's really good. And I'd be like super happy to get him, right? Tier 2 is still really good. Do you want to like right away discuss if like you disagree with me having Ottinger in a tier above Hellebuyck?
No, like I get it, especially like in the cupful, we've raised the value of wins a bit. And like while Hellebuyck is like at the start of Hellebuck's career, we were sort of like seeing great and we were seeing meh. But now it's been 4 straight years of fantastic. Well, 3 were fantastic and 1 was merely good. But like that, I'm joking, merely good. Like Hellebuyck has been incredible with a really, really tough workload. But of course, there's questions about what to expect. We talked about it in our Red Boys episode, with Kyle Connor and Josh Morrissey, and well, Pierre-Luc Dubois is departed now. But what exactly does next year in Winnipeg look like? I don't know. And if Winnipeg plays better defensively, how does that impact Hellebuyck? Well, it takes away some volume, which is like one of the reasons he's good. And I don't know, we haven't really gotten a chance to see him lately when he's not busy, but I remember in those like kind of yo-yo early years from Hellebuyck, there was some ideas put out there. Like there was some talk that, oh yeah, like he does better when he's seeing 35 to 40 shots a night. So, and that's one of the reasons why his save percentage hadn't been totally consistent. So Elon, I'm with you. Like just the lesser potential for wins, unknown situation in front of him. Maybe he'll see less volume. I agree with having Hellebuyck as a second tier goalie. Like for me, like not to belabor the Ettinger point, like I just don't know. Yeah, well, let's talk about the other tier 2 goalies first, because like, well, I mentioned Georgiev specifically is in tier 2, and to me, to my eye, he looks pretty similar to Ottinger, and yeah. I'm curious to know like what differentiates those two for you with Ottinger in tier 1 and Georgiev in tier 2. And I'll just toss out before I let you have it. It's that Georgiev has played, I think I mentioned this already, like kind of poorly shorthanded. And that is a place where I could see him getting like some regression and improving, and then definitely finding a place in the top tier.
Yeah, well, first of all, Georgiev's already getting a big promotion. Last year we had him in tier 5. And now, yeah, he's the next guy that I wanted to talk about as a tier 2 goalie. So first, the pros, you've already said a bunch. He's the starting goalie on Colorado, who I last year, so many injuries, kind of hard to judge. It still seems like, if everyone's healthy, they should be one of the top teams in the league again. And he's their starter. And he had a really good year last year, 918 save percentage. So definitely earns the promotion to tier 2. And I guess the question is, should he be even higher, or is he the same as like Ottinger? I don't want to make this whole show about Jake Ottinger. I guess my question marks for Georgiev are like, number one, like before last season, he was in the NHL for like a while with the Rangers, and he was like never that great. Like I remember there was a stretch where like if Shesterkin was so good, and it was like every time they put Georgiev in, it was like a good time to like just expect, like, when I like, if I'm streaming in a player for my fantasy league, I would stream against the Rangers, like someone playing against Georgiev, because I felt confident that he was going to blow it. Like, so I still have that feeling in my head, which maybe is a bias that I need to let go of, because I know last year he was so great, but like I've never had that feeling about Jake Ottinger, right? He was a kind of a, before he was in the NHL, but he was like, barely, wasn't around for too long. And then last year he came in his first season as a full-time starter. And I guess, to be fair, it was also Georgiev's first season as a full-time starter. But I guess I'd seen enough of Georgiev to still make me think of him as like a little bit concerning. Also, I guess the other thing is that if you recall last year, and you might roll your eyes at this, Brian, because I've been more high on this guy than you, but like Pavel Francouz last year was like injured for a lot of the year. Maybe that'll happen again. He seems to be super injury prone, right? But I still wonder if Francouz was like healthy. I'm not saying that he would steal the job from Georgiev, but maybe it could be more of like a 60-40. Like, I don't know if Georgiev plays 62 games if Francouz was like healthy the whole time, because I think Francouz is like a pretty solid backup that Colorado would be happy to play. Like Francouz put up a 915 save percentage last year, but only played 16 games. So what's that even worth? So that's another concern, compared to like an Ottinger, right? Where I just have no concern that the backup, like Wedgwood, is not someone that's going to get a lot of games. Like he's just there when they need to rest Ottinger. And I wonder if like Francouz is considered like better and like someone that Colorado might want to play a little more. So those would be those were my reasons, but I'd be totally fine if you think they're actually the same.
No, I hear that. Well, like, except like, okay, so you're talking about, I remember those days where Georgiev was like mercurial, right? Like you mentioned, like, you want to play the guys against Georgiev, but I remember in that same era, like quaking when my opponent was adding Georgiev as a stream, because like he could roll off these, like it was basically you were seeing a Jekyll and Hyde situation from Georgiev, and you could just not predict it. But last year, Georgiev had a 66% quality start percentage after basically career being at 50%. And that's huge. And I think that speaks to, like, I think that was actually a lot him. You could say, okay, well, he's in Colorado. They're better than the Rangers teams had been for the last 5 years. And yes, that's true. But you try and isolate all the variables here. Like Georgiev had a 930 5-on-5 save percentage last year. That's the same as Ilya Sorokin's. He had a Delta Fenwick save percentage that matched Jake Ottinger's. So that tells me that he seems to at least be about as capable.
Look, no doubt, last season was incredible. Like, you're not going to hear an argument from me.
And so for me, I honestly, I hear what you're saying. And for me, this is a reason to maybe move on. Like, I would say I would keep Georgiev out of the top tier, because you don't want anybody who could, for any reason, be seeding starts to the backup. And I hear you, Francouz. I don't think, last year the debate was like, oh, which one of these guys is going to emerge? I don't think Francouz is going to emerge as an NHL starter, but he could steal some starts. For that to happen, Georgiev would have to falter. But you're right that it's a different situation than in Dallas. So if anything, I'd just say, like, I wouldn't move Georgiev up. I would move Ottinger down. But again, I'm not belaboring that. I'm good with where you've got it. I'm curious what the listeners think. Too. And we haven't even talked about the other goalie in tier 2 yet.
Yeah, I put one other goalie here. I wonder if this will be a bit of a controversial pick, because he has the worst save percentage by far of all the other goalies we've talked about. You know what? Let's leave that as a tease. We'll be back in just a sec, and I'll tell you the third goalie here in tier 2. So think on that. Try to guess who it is. All right, we are back, Brian, and like I teased, we're going to talk about the third goalie that I put here in tier 2, and I'm just going to throw it out there, Thatcher Demko, okay? I feel good about Thatcher Demko. Maybe this is more of a vibes thing. Like, he's a guy who, like, last year we had in tier 2, and anyone who took him was like probably swearing at us and being like, why did I listen to these bozos? Because they screwed me, because Thatcher Demko was really bad last year, especially at the start, right? Like he was so terrible, but all of Vancouver was terrible. So like to already get into my reasoning why I don't feel too bad about it, I'm like, don't forget Elias Pettersson was like terrible. Like everyone was bad. That team was just falling apart. It was bad news. And yeah, the first couple, like, 15 games or so of the season, Demko was brutal, but if you look at the last like 17 games, then he got hurt for a while, so obviously that didn't help anything, but then he came back and he was like incredible to end the year. Remember, Vancouver just kept on stringing wins together to the point where they hurt their chances at a good draft pick, and they almost like even made the playoffs. It was just they were so far back from their terrible start. So Demko, and before that, like Demko was really good, and like this is another situation where like Dallas, like a Tampa, like there's no backup to challenge, right? Like they've got Silovs, I guess, and Spencer Martin. What's Silovs' first name? I don't even remember now.
Arturs
Silovs. I don't know who's going to be the backup. It's like such a boring competition of who's going to end up being the backup in Vancouver, because like clearly Demko's going to just have to play a ton of games.
Yeah.
If the Canucks want to come anywhere close to the playoffs, it's going to be based on Demko playing like most games in the NHL.
I'm going to assume it'll be Silovs in the AHL getting games, because I think he's the one they're most interested in developing rather than sitting on the bench. That can be Spencer Martin's job.
Yeah. And, I know Demko, there are some other goalies, like looking at the mock draft ADP, we've been doing a ton of mock drafts over on our patron Discord. I think we're on like our 40th one right now or something. Anyways, there's a couple goalies that we haven't mentioned that have been taken on average higher than Demko, but this is like my feeling is like, if I'm, drafting goalie, I want volume. I think Vancouver is a good team. Like I think they're like a team that could definitely challenge for the playoffs if if they continue how they were at the end of last year. I don't see why they couldn't. Plus they added Philly Hronek, who should help. Like he didn't even play last year. So I don't know. I think Vancouver's good. I think he's going to play a lot, and I think he's a really good goalie. So that's why I'm having him as the third goalie in tier 2, along with Georgiev and Connor Hellebuck.
No arguments from me. Like if Hellebuck is in tier 2, so is Demko. Demko like had the thing about Demko, it's actually really funny. I was like, he was bad in his raw numbers last year, like a 920 5-on-5 save percentage. All the guys we've talked about so far, 924 and up, like up to 930. Most of them closer to 930 than 924. And here's Thatcher Demko sitting with a 925 on 5 save percentage. But guess what? He still performed 6 save points ahead of his expected Fenwick save percentage last year to land at that number, which is insane. Like that just shows how much disarray Vancouver was in and how amazing Demko still was. Like a lot of other goalies in his situation would have withered and faltered, and Demko did not. And Demko has now been consistently very good for 3 seasons now at 5-on-5. So I don't have many reservations. And actually, of the top, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 tiers out of most NHL goalies, actually, I'm just looking through my shorthanded save percentage list. Demko was on the low end this year with just an 835 shorthanded save percentage. So that hurt his all situations number. So there's a couple ways that Demko was just getting crushed last year by very poor protection by a team in disarray in front of him and shorthanded. Both of those I expect to be fixed to some extent next year, letting Demko's all situations number reflect his true talent a little more closely, and not just having to dig through all these other numbers to be like, yeah, it's still there. So Thatcher Demko in tier 2 alongside Hellebuck and Georgiev I can get with.
Yeah, I guess one concern is definitely still that defense. Like I mentioned, they brought in Philly Hronek, and then they have Quinn Hughes.
You keep calling him Philly. Is
That's
that
fun.
You guys? Are you buds?
I don't know, Phil. I don't know. I like calling him Philly. Like it's like reminds me of Philip Hedl, and we call it a Philly Heat. So I guess it's in my head. I don't know.
Okay, sure. All
right, Philip Hronek, Sir Mr. Hronek is there. Quinn Hughes is there. I also would have definitely remembered Tyler Myers, which isn't a good thing, but I know Tyler Myers is there. Like, Brian, do you think you can name the other 3, like 3 more defensemen, or even like 1 or 2 more defensemen on this team? Like that's a reason for concern right there. Like they don't have a lot there in terms of depth of players we know and consider good.
No, not without cheating. I wouldn't be able to tell you. Like I'm still like off-season depth chart brain, right? Like I would like to think that by training camp or first week I could, but no. And congratulations if you knew that Carson Soucy, Kristen Wolanin, Ian Cole, or Matt Irwin or Tucker Pullman could also make appearances on that Vancouver blue line.
Yeah. I hope that at some point the other Elias Pettersson shows up. Maybe it's still a bit too early, but that'll get really fun when two Elias Petterssons are on the same team. He's only 19 years old, so it's probably still a year or two away if he makes it to the NHL. The question Shams is asking, is Ethan Bear still there?
Stefan Richer situation.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Okay, so that's 2 tiers down, like a lot to go. I have like 11 tiers here for you, Brian. So we'll see. I guess we might have to pick up the pace a little bit. Moving to tier 3, these are goalies who I still consider to be the starter for their team, but there's like a bigger question mark. And my question mark is either that they've really stunk recently, or that I'm concerned that maybe they're like not going to get like a lot of starts. Kind of like what I said about Georgiev, but like much worse. Like they could be like 55-45 situation, especially with the first guy I'm going to bring up, our reigning Vezina winner, Linus Ullmark. So I can't have him lower than tier 3. He was incredible last year, .938 save percentage, like 40 wins. And he only played 49 games, right? He had much fewer games than a lot of the only goalie that played less than him is Demko, who was injured. Everyone else we've talked about played like close to 60 or higher. Ullmark only 49 games, but yet he had 40 wins, led the league. So that just goes to show like how good he was, how good Boston was. Save percentage, like nothing. You can't say anything about Linus Ullmark's season last year. That wasn't good, except for that maybe they should have continued to alternate in the playoffs, because once he started playing every game for Boston, it didn't go as well as when he was alternating games. But yeah, that my concern is like in a league like the Cupful anyways, where volume, you can't get points from a goalie that's on your bench, right? And like Swayman is still there. And I feel like Boston, the one takeaway from what happened in their playoff collapse, right, is that like maybe they should have just kept alternating their goalies. I don't see why next year they won't just continue to do what worked for them so well last year. Maybe Ullmark will play even less than 49 games. Maybe we're looking at closer to 41 and 41. Like, I don't know. Or maybe he plays only 45. So I just don't have a lot of reason to expect Ullmark to play a lot more, barring obviously a Swayman injury. And then also, Boston is not as good. Like Bergeron's gone. That's very significant. Brian's favorite player, David Krejci's gone. That's not good. Brian's other favorite player, Taylor Hall, is gone. So Boston, yeah, it's not going to be as sweet. I don't think they're going to be winning the President's Trophy again. I don't think that's a hot take. And so, yeah, and Ullmark's not, but still it's hard. Like part of me kind of wants to put him a little lower, but I just feel like people would be like, you're dumb. But I don't know. What do you think about him here?
Well, I think you can move him a lot, Linus Ullmark, depending on your format. Like if you're just looking for a start or two a week, and rate stats are important. One point that we make on most Smörgoåliesbord episodes is that, of course, a lot depends on your categories, but we're really focused on save percentage because that is a goalie performance stat. If you're tracking goals against average, that's a team stat. But that could be a reason to like Linus Ullmark, right? Because, you just named the departures from Boston over this past offseason that could impact the team. But I still have like a pretty good deal of faith in Bruce Cassidy. Oh, wait, no, not Bruce Cassidy. Oh, no. Their coach is the other guy who switched teams. Montgomery, right? Yeah. Okay.
So you'll retake it. Okay.
Yeah. Like I still have faith in John Montgomery and the Bruins to figure it out and not.
Wait, it's not John. It's Jim, I think.
Jim. Oh crap. John Montgomery is the host of The Amazing Race Canada. Okay. I still have faith, and their mentor's Don. Okay. I still have faith in Jim Montgomery and like the Bruins to still be able to manage the playing style that they were managing last year. Although, like, I don't know, maybe I am like Patrice Bergeron, one of the greatest defensive centers we've seen like in our generation for sure. So maybe that's a stretch. But what I'm saying here is if you just want a start or two a week, then Linus Ullmark could be your guy, and you're focused on save percentage and goals against average. If those are like half or more of your goalie categories, you could just be happy with Ullmark. But if you are seeking volume, like wins and saves, and shutouts count as volume too, just because the more you play, the more chances you have at getting that lotto shutout, then Ullmark is less appealing to you. So I think you've got to figure out based on your own numbers where you want to put Linus Ullmark. For me, in our Cupful scoring, where like it is very volume oriented, and of course wins help too. But it's all volume basically. There's no rate stats impacting. It's a points league, right? So somebody who's going to be sitting 41 out of 82 games is not a tier 3 goalie for me. Like aside for like all the other goalies on this list, I expect to play 50 or more games. I can't say the same for Linus Ullmark. So as good as he was, and holy cow, was he good. He led the NHL, as I already mentioned, by a mile in 5-on-5 save percentage. He also played 15 points above his expected save percentage. So he was not just well protected in Boston. He was playing out of his mind along with whatever protection he was receiving. Yeah, like so it's very volatile too. Like Ullmark does not have a super long track record, which I'll get to with a couple of these other tier 3 goalies, Elon, that I'm sure you're about to bring up. But in the meantime, in like a couple in a volume situation, not interested in Ullmark. In a rate situation, I am interested in Ullmark. But I still wouldn't necessarily rank him or expect him to repeat what he did last year, because I still am not 100% sure that it wasn't like I think he's an NHL starting goalie, but I've never seen him be that good before.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you're in a league that the rates are worth a lot, it's still like you still want to get a lot of games. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned, but I guess we have to leave him in tier. Let me know, Brian, if you want to move him down to tier 4. We can. Maybe as we talk about the other goalies in tier 3, you can tell me if you think you'd have them like significantly above Ullmark or not. Okay, next up, I mean, all these guys again are guys with like some question marks, right? But next up, I'll say I've got Stuart Skinner from the Oilers, and this is a guy that wasn't even like in a high tier last year at all, because we expected him to be the backup behind Jack Campbell, but he came in, he played 50 games. He only had a .913 save percentage, but like, I just wonder, this is, I guess, a vibe thing a little bit. Like he's only 24 years old. I feel like there's a really good chance that he comes in and is once again the starter on the Oilers because of how well he did and how bad Campbell did. And the Oilers are just like a really strong team at this point. I think even better now that they have Mattias Ekholm to help with the defense a little bit. So this might be, again, I don't know, tell me if it's controversial or not, but I feel pretty good about Stuart Skinner being in this group. And maybe I'll throw another one at you just to like, move things along a little bit. Another guy that I think is similar to Skinner is Ilya Samsonov, who I have here. Another guy who's like, was in a low tier last year. We had him like tier 7. We didn't really know if he was more of a, like, we didn't know if Matt Murray was going to get the starts or Samsonov. I think most people were picking Murray, but Murray never played, of course, barely played. Samsonov ended up playing 42 games. It was really good, .919 save percentage. And now with Murray on the LTIR, we expect that Samsonov is going to be the starting goalie on a really strong team. So here it's a situation where like there's reasons to expect him to be higher. Like maybe he should be like with a Georgiev, right? But of course, at the same time, Samsonov hasn't really proven himself the way Georgiev did last year. As a volume starter, like he's never played more than 44 games, which he did for Washington a couple of years ago. So, but I'd be pretty stoked to get Samsonov, especially if I see him dropping far. So yeah, I have him here in this tier along with Ullmark and Skinner and 2 other guys we'll get to soon.
Yeah, so I like that you lump them all together because I think they've all been volatile, right? They all have a short track record of being really great. And Ullmark and Samsonov, in addition to that, have a track record, like a previous track record of being like meh to like, are they even good? So I think they belong together. And I think I'd still prefer like within this tier, I'd prefer Samsonov and Skinner to Ullmark just because they're going to play more often. And I think Skinner is on a team that's going to win at least as much as Boston too. And I think he's going to play a fair chunk too. Like if Edmonton is serious and like they have to be, they don't have a choice. Like Jack Campbell last year, he played 36 games and played 15 save points below his expected number. That's like the flip side of what Linus Ullmark and Ilya Sorokin did, right? Like that is like very, very, very bad. Like it's rare to see a goalie play so many games and be that bad. Jack Campbell's even strength save percentage was an .896, which is also extraordinarily rare for a goalie at 5-on-5 to play. Like basically the average is like 912, 915 at 5. Most goalies worth their salt in the NHL can like sit around a 920 5-on-5 save percentage. There's really only 1 or 2 other goalies that we're going to like give serious consideration to within the top 6 tiers who had a save percentage below 900. It is rare and it is bad. And maybe this is worse than Jack Campbell should have done. Like maybe he's going to be better next year, but I think he made it pretty clear. And so did Stuart Skinner with his play on the other side, like being really great when he was called upon. I think it's pretty clear to me that Skinner's the one who should get the volume starts. Samsonov should, so long as he can stay healthy and not fall off. I have a little less faith in Samsonov holding on to his play from last year than Skinner. So yeah, Elon, I think like you've grouped these guys together fairly, but I would go for more starts from Skinner and Samsonov than I would from Allmark. But again, depends on your league format and whether you want volume or rates.
All right, and this is tier 3 again. I still have 2 other goalies I want to throw at you that I'm going to also consider tier 3, which is again like goalies who I consider to be starters that are like decent, but like some question marks here. We've said the question marks with Skinner, Allmark, and Samsonov. The other 2 are just goalies that I just think are like fine. Like I think they're like good. Like I think they're going to be fine. They're like more like if Samsonov, Allmark, and Skinner maybe have higher upside but also lower floors, I think these last 2 are just like pretty confident they're going to end up being like tier 3 caliber. So those are Darcy Kemper and Tristan Jarry. They're both like the clear starters on their teams, right? Like Washington's backup is Charlie Lindgren, and Pittsburgh's backup now that they've traded away DeSmith. Not that DeSmith was much competition, but now it's like Nedeljkovic, who's like somehow still in the NHL. So like I think that these guys are like clearly going to the season expected to be starters. They could even potentially be volume starters, but also they've been kind of meh lately. Like Kemper had a .908 save percentage, which was fine, and Washington seems to be a bit on a downswing. And then, only 22 wins, by the way, for Kemper last year, even though he played 57 games. And then you have Tristan Jarry, similar, like, right? He had a .909 save percentage. He had some really bad stretches. He's had some good stretches in the past, but at this point, there's enough concerns there. I guess Kyle Dubas didn't have too many concerns when he signed him to this long-term contract, but I still have some concerns where, like, I wouldn't put him in a tier 2, even though I think he might be a volume goalie on what should be a good team, Erik Karlsson's team. Like, hard not to cheer for him as a Karlsson super fan here, but yeah, so I think that Jarry and Kemper fit well in this tier 3 along with Samsonov, Allmark, and Skinner. They round it out.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that just speaks to the quality of their teams and the size of their expected workload. Like you said, they're sort of meh. Neither one is terribly exciting, although I think Kemper has some upside that he occasionally realizes, whereas Jarry, man, like he's never really set a high watermark. Like Jarry's career high watermark at 5-on-5 is basically like, yep, you did it. Like you were the average NHL goalie, a mid 920s 5-on-5 save percentage. Good for you. And Kemper, can sort of sit around that mark, but sometimes he can exceed it by a fair bit, whereas Jarry hasn't proven his ability to do that. But they're both on teams that should still be good enough to gather them a fair amount of wins because they're going to be the no doubt starters. But and you're right, like Jarry's like this newly committed contract that he just got. Like I kind of wonder if Dubas looked around and was like, well, we're not going to get any like for sure average NHL goalie locked in for a really important 2 or 3 years. Like we'd have to be rolling the dice with someone, and Jarry's still a dice roll, but is a pretty conservative dice roll. And I think that's why he's still with the Pens. And I don't know that means, like, again, it's a short window that the Pens are in. If Nedeljkovic comes in and starts out playing Jarry, I would expect he gets starts. Because there's not
that's
a lot
like a big if. Like you could say that about a lot of goalies, right?
It's like, a huge if.
Like if Francouz comes in and outplays Georgiev, then Francouz will probably get the majority of the starts, right?
Well, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I just feel like there's this urgency in Pittsburgh, and I don't know. Like, I think some teams might give their starter more time to figure things out. I agree with you there. I could be reading it wrong. But
no, yeah, I mean, if Jarry stinks, I definitely think they're going to try to. Yeah, they need to get into the playoffs this year. They just gave away. Yeah, like some futures to get Karlsson to go on a run now, and their core is, they need Jarry to be good, but I think Jarry should be good. I mean, should be better than Nedeljkovic from everything we've seen so far.
I mean, he should be. We'll see if he is though. Like again, I think he'll be average. But he's been average to like not great in his career. So fair. We'll see which Jarry we see. But Elon, I like your tier 3. I think Jarry and Kemper are the guys who, like, what you're going to get from them, and Samsonov, Allmark, and Skinner are like a little, like I mentioned, those more volatile pieces in the tier. But in terms of where I'm drafting them, yeah, this is about where I draw the line. I have a tier 4 goalie, maybe 2, who I might bump up into that third tier group when you roll through that list.
Okay, all right, so let's get into it then. Let's go to tier 4 then and see who are the goalies. I have a bunch of goalies here in tier 4. at this point. So here I'm talking about goalies that are like still start. We're still talking starters, okay? So that's good. Like, and starters I'm pretty confident in, but they were either like bad last year or they're like unproven to a point where I'm like nervous about them, or they're just like on a bad team. That's sort of like, so it's like a big kind of reason to be concerned, but also still all these guys have upside. Like, and again, like if you want to use one of these strategies where you're going to get like, you know, a bunch of great if you're in a league where everyone's drafting goalies early, it might be worth it to just like let all these, what is it, like 12 goalies or so that we've talked about so far, like let them all get taken while you're grabbing like all these amazing like 90+ point forwards. You know, you grab Kyle Connor while someone else is drafting Georgiev or whatever, and then, you know, there's still some good guys. Like I like all these guys in tier 4 good enough to like be happy to have them as my starting goalie and just hope that doesn't blow me up. You know, like 2 of them are people that I had last year in the couple and I ended up in 13th place, and it's because they were really terrible. I'll just start with them actually. But I still have them in tier 4. Maybe I'm dumb. Elvis Merzlikins over on Columbus is a guy who like had a huge like pedigree. Like, you know, like he came into the league, he was so great. And then last year, it just seemed like Merzlikins is going to get all the volume. Like, there was also some excitement about Gaudreau coming in, like this team's on the up. And then like just went so terribly. And Korpisalo out of nowhere, a guy who like seemed like he was on his way out of the league. You know, he was doing so badly before, like stole the job like pretty quickly and easily from Merzlikins and like kind of never looked back until he finally got traded. And yeah, but at the end of the day, Merzlikins ended up with an 876 save percentage. It was a brutal season. Before that, he was always above 900, right? 907, 916 the year before, 923 in his rookie year. And like, there's some extenuating circumstances. Like all the defense on Columbus were injured last year. So I'd imagine, Brian, when you bring up your numbers, you're going to say that he wasn't protected well. I'd be very surprised if the defense led by, I don't know if I could remember the names of these guys, and like Marcus Bjork and like
Andrew Peak.
Andrew Peak. Like I wouldn't expect them to have been that good. And also, of course, is the personal stuff, right? Like his very good friend had died the summer before the season. Like he probably had a lot going on. I think he put a lot of pressure on himself. So I don't know. Like obviously, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but I feel like next year, fresh start. I'm going to assume the defense will stay healthy. I mean, who knows? But you'd hope like it's not going to be as bad luck as it was last year. And then at the end of the day, then you have and also I think Columbus is looking like just better and better, right? They have a good young core that's like now a year older. They still have Laine and Gaudreau. So they have Werenski, who will hopefully be healthy. So I think that he's a pretty solid guy to get. And then the other guy who I drafted last year that ended up blowing me up was Philip Grubauer, who was so bad at the start that Martin Jones somehow was the preferred choice for the Kraken for a large stretch of the season. And Martin Jones was actually winning a lot of games. Like it was going really well for him. Grubauer did kind of turn it on at the end of the season, and he had, you know, he was good in the playoffs. And going into next year, Martin Jones is gone. This is another situation where like the backup is going to be a battle between Joey Decord and Chris Driedger. So it seems like clearly Seattle, who's a team that considers themselves a contender, right? They're going in expecting Grubauer to be their sure number one, which is nice to get so late in a fantasy draft. And Seattle's a good team. Grubauer has had good seasons in the past, but unfortunately they were with different teams, not with Seattle, but maybe this is the year. So I have Grubauer and Merzlikins starting off this pretty like full tier 4. I have a lot of goalies to go through, but those are the first 2 that hit close to home to me because they both caused me to do so badly last year in the couple.
Yeah. And it's like the way you started this segment, like tier 4 is usually the value tier, right? It's where like, yeah, you can wait and take like a small to moderate risk, like not quite medium risk, like a low medium risk on these guys. And it could blow up in your face or it could go well, but you are trading off some certainty and comfort and confidence from the top 3 tiers without ending up in tier 5 or 6 or below where you're really finding yourself maybe
you're rolling the dice.
Yeah, like that's where you're going with guys that you're not 100% sure whether they're going to get starts or play well. So I think I think Merzlikins and Grubauer are probably like decent places to start. You brought up the protection for Merzlikins, and like, yes, it was bad last year, but Merzlikins was worse. He like, remember when I was like Jack Campbell and I went on forever, he was 15 save points below expected. Merzlikins had an unheard of number, 23 save points below expected. Like he was hot. He was a hot mess.
It might be the kind of thing, Brian. Tell me if I'm wrong here. Tell me if I'm being crazy. Like, I just wonder if the defense was so bad that like at some point the measures just weren't able to like.
I'm gonna follow this up, and like again, like you said, these are measures, right? They don't necessarily describe what was going on the ice like perfectly. Like these are reductive numbers. We're taking everything we see. All my numbers, by the way, are coming from evolving-hockey.com for tonight's show. But Merzlikins protection last year, 941. Okay. The season before that, 941. The season before that, 944. Season before that, 949, which is like exceptional protection. So like a lot has been in flux in Columbus between teammates and coaches and injuries. And like, I believe that last year's Blue Jackets were just like, lost at sea. They had no idea what was going on, and I'm willing to forgive Merzlikins for the season he had, and I am hoping that he can pull off a bounce back. His 5-on-5 shooting save percentage last year was 884, so one of those guys below 900. I actually think that's the very worst marker on my list here, so he had a season to forget. I still feel like Merzlikins has something to show. Like I would still, Elon, like you took that risk last year. I don't think it was the wrong thing to do. You got burnt and it happens, but I still think that he has more to give than we saw. Maybe we've seen for a couple of years, although he is already hitting his age 29 season. So, time. I mean, he's getting there, right? Although some goalies are just finding their stride around this time in their career. And don't forget, Merzlikins has Daniil Tarasov coming up behind him, who could very well be a goalie of the future, right? And it could be the near future if Merzlikins can't find his game quick enough. So he's someone that I would be a little concerned if he doesn't find his game early, that he gets pushed out of a lot of starts. And then Grubauer, Elon, is actually, he's been like my favorite value pick in our mock drafts this year. Like I'm picking him up. I think at the end of the draft, like around you have the ADP in front of you, but I'd say like around the 225 mark of the mock drafts is my second or third goalie. I'm happy with that. He could only start, like, I think he's going to start more than half the games. I think, and like, this is a total hunch, like seeing what he did in the playoffs and at the end of the season last year, I think Grubauer,
he's figured it out.
I think he might have figured it out. I think he's back on track, and like, hey, I've been there with him too, like where I've had him on my roster during these like very upsetting and volatile times. And like I understand everyone's hesitance and concern about it, but I like him a lot. And Elon, I sort of like hinted at a goalie that I would move to tier 3. He's one of these tier 4 guys that I would be okay seeing up in tier 3. Like I think he's as likely as Jari to have a good season and have about the same number of wins.
I mean, Jari like had stretches where he was so bad last year, and he still had a 909 save percentage overall, right? Like Grubauer's now had 2 straight years being like less than 900 save percentage. So it's hard for me, like respectfully, like if you really feel strongly, we can consider moving him. But like he's been so bad that like I like him here as a value pick. I agree with you, but like it's really hard for me to put him up with a Jari or a Kemper who have still been consistently above 900.
So I will counter with like Grubauer not in a starter's role, although occasionally in a starter's role. In the last 6 seasons, he has been a 60% or higher quality start percentage guy in 4 of the last 6 seasons. Actually, I can go back and say, 5 of the last 7. This is going back to 16-17.
Yeah, he was really good when he was
in Washington.
He was good in Washington and Colorado, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, but even in like last year, 60% quality start. The year before, 33%. Yes, trash. I think if we just write that year off, we are seeing who Grubauer is and can be. But again, this is the very vibes oriented. This is based on the fact that he's more often than not been a pretty reliable starting goalie, and I think he's set up to be that guy again this year in Seattle, especially after the playoffs he had.
Yeah, I can't get over how he lost starts to Martin Jones last year. Like I don't know. Let's think about. Let's see if the chat. If you get overwhelming support from the chat, I'm down to move him up. But okay, let's talk about some other guys we have in tier 4, because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. We've talked about 2 of them. Grubauer's one that we might consider moving up to tier 3. Let me throw maybe 3 more at you right now, and then we'll do the other 3. So next up, how about Vitek Vanacek over in New Jersey? So again, this is like he's going in to the season as a starter, and probably like if it works out, like this is huge upside, right? Like New Jersey's looking just so stacked, so good. Like if he's going to be their starter, he's going to get a ton of wins for sure. Last year, 33 wins for Vanacek. Like that's not too like okay. Georgiev had 40. Okay, so he's not like okay, but he's whatever, like top 10 in wins last year for Vanacek. He had a 911 save percentage. It was really kind of like a tale of two seasons. We didn't do red boys for goalies, but if we did, he would have been right. He started the year like a 923 save percentage after 15 games. It was looking like 11-2. Like it was looking like Vanacek was like the goalie steal of the year. It was looking like we were super dumb for putting him down in tier 6 last year. But yeah, he kind of fell off at the end. Akira Schmid came in and like played really well. So there's obviously that concern that what if Akira Schmid is able to like steal starts, maybe steal the job. Like I don't think Vanacek is like a guarantee to be the starter, but he goes in as the presumptive starter. Oh, and also like the playoffs didn't go that well for him. So he goes in as the presumptive starter with like high upside. So I have him here in tier 4, but like I'd be concerned like a little bit, but also I'd be excited for the upside of being the starter on New Jersey. So he's one. In a similar vein, I'll bring up Philip Gustafsson, someone who we had super low last year, tier 8, and he's played the least of like everyone I think we've talked about so far. He only had 39 games. Or I guess Grubauer also had 39 games, but that was due to injury. But like, yeah, Marc-Andre Fleury came into the season as the starter, and by the end, it was so clear that Gustafsson was the better goalie. He was incredible, right? He had 931 save percentage. Like in the games he played, he was lights out. I'd be pretty surprised if Minnesota is thinking that the 39-year-old Fleury. I don't even know how old Fleury is at this point, but I know he's younger than me, but he's up there. And so I think Gustafsson should be the starter. I'd love to have him higher. I wonder if he's the other guy you have higher. It's just like, I just don't know. Like Fleury's like, he's Marc-Andre Fleury, like future Hall of Famer. I don't know. I don't know if like he's considered a backup just yet, as opposed to like a 1A, 1B. So that would be my concern. But like Minnesota's a good team. And Gustafsson seems like he's really good. So we got Vanacek, Gustafsson joining Grubauer and Merzlikins. And I'll throw one more at you, Brian, a fun one here. How about Korpisalo? I have to put in here. The guy who was on the same team as Merzlikins going into last year. Now he goes to Ottawa with this contract, 5 years. Was it $5 million per year? Something like that. I know they have like Anton Forsberg, who at one point we liked, but I think like Korpisalo is like the clear starter, at least to start, unless he falters. And the year he had last year was incredible. He had a 914 save percentage overall, but if you just look at like that stretch when he got to LA, like unbeatable. I think, yeah, so he's a starting goalie on what should be a good, exciting team in the Ottawa Senators. You know, we thought they were a good, exciting team last year. It didn't work out like as well. But yeah, it's hard not to have Korpisalo here just because, yeah, he's the starter on a good team. And with this contract, I think he'll play a lot. So, okay. So the goalies I've thrown at you here, Vanacek, Gustafsson, Korpisalo, who I think fall into this category of tier 4, along with Grubauer and Merzlikins.
Yeah. Korpisalo, again, one of those like late draft gets that I keep finding in my mocks. I'll wait basically until I have a couple goalies plus Korpisalo as the one I want. And usually those goalies get taken first, and I help myself to Joonas Korpisalo, who, it took me a very long time to warm up to him, and I'm still not sure that I am completely warmed up to Joonas Korpisalo, who's had one season since his rookie season, 15-16. So this past season was Korpisalo's 8th season in the league. He's played at least 14 games every year. Last year was the very first time that Korpisalo outperformed what the average NHL goalie would do given his workload, aka his expected Fenwick save percentage. So I'm willing to take that chance. I think he has to do well. I think Ottawa needs him to do well. I don't know that Ottawa, we've been through this. I'm not sure it was the right choice, the right call for him or the Sens. But I'm willing to take the same chance on him, I guess, even though he really hasn't shown a whole lot of reason to believe that he can do this time after time after time, which is what we want to see from a goalie, even in tier 4. Like we want to see some kind of track record. And really, aside from last season, 39 games, Korpisalo doesn't have one to speak of. And that's why, I think that's probably why I'm getting him on the late side of my drafts, which I'm still, like I said, happy to do, but that's why he's not in tier 3 or any higher to me. Vitek Vanacek, yeah, I think the backup threat is real. I could see them going 50-50. I mean, I talked a lot about Vanacek and Samsonov coming out of Washington, watching neither one win the job when the job was theirs to win all season long. And I could see that pattern repeating. In fact, someone in the chat, already mentioned that I think it was Shams that Joseph Wall was going to be somebody who he's going to keep an eye on because he could see Wall getting starts sooner rather than later. Or like it's possible. It's within the realm of possibility. And I would say the same for Akira Schmid and Vitek Vanacek, that they could have a closer to 50-50 split than it looks like they might when training camp opens. Vanacek, like you said, Elon had a great start to the season, then really tapered off. And that's the problem with Vitek Vanacek. And then the guy you mentioned, the other one that I'm saving for last year, Philip Gustafsson. By the way, Marc-Andre Fleury entering his age 39 season. He'll turn 39 in late November. So just to keep you posted on exactly how old he'll be. Like I'm not getting Gustafsson at value at all in my mocks. Like people are excited to take Gustafsson, and I think for good reason. I think this is another year where Minnesota is looking like a team that, like, yeah, could do pretty well. I'm just like, I use betting odds to sort of before I see some more like full thought out analytic predictions for the season. I take a quick peek, and Minnesota's like in the middle of the pack or at the top middle of the pack. And I think that's where they belong. And I think they probably get there with some really great play from Gustafsson. The reason why I think maybe he stays in tier 4, like I don't know. I was going to say I'm not ready to say Fleury's washed because I've said that a couple times before and I've been wrong.
But also like the track record, or like Gustafsson doesn't have it.
Well, that's true. But I think he doesn't have it because he hasn't had an opportunity. I legitimately think coming to Minnesota was Gustafsson's first, like, forget everything from Ottawa, which did or did not happen. I think Gustafsson's first real opportunity to prove himself came in Minnesota, and I think he was ready. And I think he's already established himself as like their goalie for the next while. And like looking at his 5-on-5 save percentage last year, second to only Linus Ullmark. I know I said second was Shesterkin on, sorry. I know before I said second was Georgiev and Sorokin, but now I'm taking another look and I see they're third. So Gustafsson had a fantastic season. One thing is that he outperformed his shorthanded expectations for sure. So there could be some regression to his all situations number, but at 5-on-5 still, Gustafsson was a sterling performer. And I think there is an argument, and in the mocks, Elon, I'm seeing him drafted more amongst these tier 3 goalies than these tier 4 goalies. And I think the argument to move him up there is strong. I just have to figure out how close a competitor if Gustafsson's going to be in tier 3, he either has to be as good as Ullmark, right? Or he has to be able to fend off Fleury as a backup, as much as Skinner, Jari, Kemper, and Samsonov will theirs. And I guess I just don't know about Marc-Andre Fleury's.
Yeah, I mean, Fleury had a 908 Yeah, like Fleury had a 908 save percentage last year. He played 46 games, so it's not like he didn't seem like totally washed, right? Like he still was a lot better than a lot of guys. He did better than Demko if you look at raw save percentage. Well, obviously, that was a team situation there, but like, yeah, so that's my concern too. But like, it could be huge value for sure. I think we're both agreeing it's good to keep Gustafsson here in tier 4, but there's definitely a good chance he could end up being like tier 2 even. Like,
huge upside. Honestly, if the tier 3 of anyone we've spoken about since the second tier, I think Gustafsson has the greatest upside, probably of anybody else in Smörgoåliesbord this year.
Okay, so we've named 6 of the goalies of the 8 that I put in tier 4. Wait, is that true? We've named, I think, 5. Okay, we've named 5 of the 8 goalies so far that I put into tier 4. Vanacek, Gustafsson, Verzlikins, Korpisalo, Grubauer. I still have 3 more to throw at you, Brian, that I'm putting all lumping into this tier, which again means for draft strategy, as far as I'm concerned, I'm kind of happy with getting any of these guys. I don't know which one's going to be better than the other. We'll get to the next 3 to finalize our tier 4 here as we're sort of rounding out the NHL, like guys we expect to be starters. So we'll get to that in just a sec. Here's some keeping Karlsson. Okay, we are back, Brian. Like I said, 3 more tier 4 goalies to go. I'll just rhyme them all off here. So Ville Husso on Detroit. He's a starter. I don't know. Like, I don't love Husso, but like he's clearly the starter. Like, who else do they have at this point? Is Hellberg the backup? Or I guess they signed James Reimer. So maybe he's the backup.
Yeah, like, Reimer.
Yeah, so Husso's for sure going to play a lot. Detroit's, looking better. They just got DeBrincat. I don't know. Like, I expect them to just be a better team. I think we talked already on a previous episode about like how close they are in the Yzer plan and all of that, but clearly Detroit is trending up. So, hard to argue with the starter on a team that should be good, or at least decent. Then we've got Bobrovsky, who's a total enigma. we saw in the playoffs last year, he was unbeatable. And then also during the regular season where he only had a 901 save percentage. Plus, there is always the risk maybe of Spencer Knight. Like, it seems a little less of a risk now that Knight's kind of taken a step back and missed all that time, but could happen. But obviously, Bobrovsky goes into the season as the starter, especially after the playoffs that he had. And then Carter Hart, I'm going to put here, who from the tweets I saw last year, anyways, it seems like Hart was like incredible for a lot of the year. And just like Philly was just so bad that eventually he crumbled, and so it could happen again. Like Philly also had to deal with injuries. But like if everyone's back for Philly, I could see Hart like, being really good. But I've been thinking that for a lot of years. So I'd be okay if you want to tell me that you need to push Hart down. I'm curious to get your thoughts on him the most, actually.
No, if anything, I'd push Hart up. Mason in the chat is making the case that like Hart should be in tier 3. If Kemper's or Hart should be wherever Kemper is. So I think it started with saying Hart's in tier 3, but actually has evolved to Kemper being moved down to tier 4. And I guess the reasons why I will say that I think Hart is in tier 4. He had a fantastic year last year. He really did, Carter Hart. Shorthanded, he was awful. And to me, that's always like, oh, well, like he could get that back with regression. Like, it's actually a good sign for me about the year to come. But over his career, Carter Hart has like never been as good as he was last year. In fact, he's usually been like not great. I know there's still a lot of hype around Carter Hart, and like there's still hope that he could evolve into this like for sure number one workload franchise cornerstone kind of guy. We just haven't seen enough from him to know that he'll be there. And I think the two things that differentiate him from Kemper, one is that Kemper has at least been consistently decent with upside to be great, whereas Hart has been consistently subpar with upside to be great. So I'll take that. I'll take that seemingly higher floor from Kemper. And I also still think that like playing for Philly this year could be like a fool's errand. Like they're going to be in rough shape. Like going back to the odds, you have Washington sort of just below the middle of the pack, but you've got Philly down in the basement with San Jose and Montreal in terms of cup odds. So putting that all together, I still think Carter Hart like could be in a volume league. Holy cow! Like Carter Hart could win you your league if you get him at the right moment in the draft and he performs. But those are two big enough ifs that I'm okay keeping Carter Hart in the 4th tier. But I could certainly I think there's better than an outside chance that he does perform like a tier 3 goalie.
Okay. Yeah. And then what do you think about Bobrovsky and Husso? And anything to add there, or just like pretty solid tier 4 guys?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've just both shown us that you can't trust either one, even though they both should be on teams that are reasonably competitive. There's not like, we don't know how much competition is coming for either one of them. Like question marks, really. Like James Reimer, I don't consider much competition for Husso. And then Bobrovsky, you've got Lyon in there. You've got Spencer Knight, who I'm not sure if he'll be back in time to start the season. So like for that reason, it's like, yeah, they could each get a lot of starts, but neither one has proven that they can be reliable. Although for Bobrovsky, the last 2 seasons, over 100 games, he has consistently played quite well, like a 920, roughly 5-on-5 save percentage, 5 or 6 save points above expected, and of course some fantastic playoffs that he just came off of. So like if Bobrovsky, I remember reading in the playoff run, like how Bobrovsky rebuilt his game and found himself, and all the sort of redemption stories you'd expect media to find when they're writing about the same team for 2 months and there's no other teams to write about. I'm open to buying into it, but I'm not terribly convinced yet. But if you're asking me, Elon, to choose between Bobrovsky and Husso, I think they fit very well in the same tier, but I think I'd lean Bobrovsky.
Yeah. By the way, a quick correction: Lyon is off to Detroit now, so he's fighting for, I guess, that Detroit backup job.
Oh yeah.
But another goalie who I know a guy who you like is going to be there in Florida. Anthony Stolarz. I know you.
Oh yeah.
You liked him.
I like both these backups.
Okay, so we'll see.
Yeah.
See what happens. All right, let's go to tier 5 here.
No NHL organization ever has.
Yeah. Okay, so to round out, so we've already talked about a bunch of goalies. We still have some goalies who could be starters. There's one guy here that I have in tier 5 that I feel like you might want to move up. I'm surprised we haven't moved anyone. Grubauer, it seems like in the chat, we didn't get this overwhelming support.
No, it was unanimously don't do it. What do you think about moving Kemper down?
I mean, Kemper seems good. I don't know why I'd move him down. He seems like he's a solid. He has no challenge.
Yeah.
Like Washington's still a good team. Kemper's never really been below like a 9-10-ish goalie. Last year was 908. Like I like Kemper. He's solid.
If I were to move one tier 4 goalie up, I think it would be Gustafsson. Now, like, now that I've been vetoed on Grubauer, I'd move Gustafsson up because I think he could be either the same situation as Allmark or the same situation as Skinner. And they're both in tier 3. Also, we're not there yet. But like Patty in the chat was mentioning, like the Jeremy Swayman disrespect.
We'll get
and like, like I don't know how much further we can go without putting Jeremy Swayman in a tier, because like I could see he and Allmark putting up extremely similar numbers next year.
Yeah, again, like I tiered it based on Cupful, so this is like leaning more volume. But yeah, if you cared more about just rate stats, then for sure Swayman would be a lot higher because he's going to play a decent number of games. I'm sure Swayman will play like 40 games. Last year, Swayman played 37 in 920. He was good. So in some leagues, he was like definitely higher ranked than definitely a Grubauer or Merzlikins. Like, but tier 5, I still got guys who I expect to be starters. And actually, tier 6, I'm also going to have guys that I expect to be starters. And then we'll get to tier 7 where I have Swayman. So I apologize. But again, I'm basing this more on a couple. And also, you could feel free to disagree. So tier 5, I've got guys who I still expect to be starters. But these are guys that I'm like a little nervous they're going to lose their job. Okay. Like, or just be really bad. So tier 4, we still had guys like I'm pretty confident they're holding their jobs. Like even like a Vanacek. Like, I'm pretty confident. Like all these 3, I'm like less confident than Vanacek. Okay, I'll start with Jacob Markstrom. I think I have a hunch that you might argue with me on Markstrom. Maybe I'm like putting too much weight. Like he was bad last year, 892 save percentage. He still played 59 games. Like the backup, I guess, officially going into next year is going to be like Dan Vladar again. But like I'm more concerned about Dustin Wolf. Like he just seems like he's so incredible. And if Calgary wants to go for it, and if Markstrom is struggling, if Dustin Wolf somehow gets into that net, I would be like thinking he could steal it. So that's just like my opinion, which is again like a vibes thing. Like obviously it's based on like him having one of the highest pedigrees of all the prospects, and he did get in one game last year and was really great. So that just the Markstrom being kind of old, coming off a bad year, having a really scary backup potential, in my opinion, is what has him there. And then I'll just throw the other 2 at you. Jordan Binnington, need I say more? He goes into the season as the presumptive starter, as he always does, but he stunk last year. And now they have Joel Hofer there, who is more of a threat than Greiss was last year, in my opinion. And then I'll put in Frederick Anderson, who was solid last year, actually, like not like a lot worse than I expected. Like my memory of last year was that Anderson was fine, but actually he wasn't that great. He only had a 903 save percentage overall. But also like Caroline, I don't know, maybe I have him too high even just because Caroline is going into the season. They have 3 goalies. I guess Kochetkov likely is starting in the minors again, so it'll be like Anderson and Ranta. But I wouldn't be surprised if like things could change quickly, and I think Kochetkov could take over as the starter. So that's my tier 5 guys who are like going to the season as starters, could be good, have history of being really great, but like really concern me.
Yeah, I like Anderson is tough for me to see alongside Markstrom and Binnington. Although, like in Cupful, volume is king or queen, whatever, and Anderson is not going to get the same volume that like even Linus Ullmark. Like Carolina is so stingy defensively. And like you said, Anderson has to face some kind of penalty for coming off this weak season. It was a rare off year for Freddie Anderson. He's really only played below his expected number one other time in his like 10-year career at this point. So like I'm willing to give him like my faith and trust going forward, but it's just it's a hard gig. Like in a league where that values anything aside from wins and goals against, if you've got Frederick Anderson stopping, 18 of 21 shots every night or 19 of 21, whatever, it kind of hurts your save percentage. And he might only play every other night. And as you've mentioned, Elon, there are 3 goalies in Carolina, and Anderson has his own injury history too. So I see it. I don't really know that he belongs alongside Markstrom and Binnington, but I'm not sure where else he fits. So I'm ready to roll with that. For Jacob Markstrom, yeah. I don't know. Like I'm into what you said about Dustin Wolf being the real challenger, especially if like Calgary wants to try and turn this thing around sooner rather than later. Like why not get Wolf in there. I guess the number one reason is that they still have a lot of cap committed to Markstrom. But I agree that Dan Vladar is just sort of like the in-between. Like if Markstrom's doing well enough to keep starting, Vladar can warm the bench while Wolf keeps getting reps in the AHL. But Markstrom now has had like 3 years in Calgary. 2 of them have been pretty bad. And he's had some incredible stretches. Like, I don't know if you remember, there was like that stretch where he was like had shutouts every other night. And I think that was like around the start of a season, and it made a big impact in a lot of fantasy leagues, but was not like eternal and had to stop at some point, obviously. So I'm with you that Markstrom and Binnington are like similarly risky kind of guys who I expect to start a lot of games, but also are very volatile and may or may not help you on any given night. I'd say like the one thing between them that might make me think that they don't belong in the same tier is that Markstrom is probably more likely to win than Jordan Binnington is. But I still don't know that I would want them over any of the tier 4 guys, which is the main point of all this. You know, I might move, like I'm looking. I feel like Merzlikins is in this tier. I feel like Merzlikins is in tier 5 with Markstrom and Binnington. He's on a team that could be good, could struggle, bad recent track record, another goalie prospect nipping at his heels. I like you know, you've got Wolf and Hofer, and I think Tarasov kind of fits the bill there.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, predicting goalies in the NHL is hard enough, so I don't want to be like now acting like I know things about goalie prospects. But I think Tarasov is a step below Hofer and especially Wolf. But considering how bad Merzlikins was, like I can't like if I'm gonna be penalizing Markstrom so much, then I can't now be like lenient. Like Merzlikins had like I just feel like with the injuries and blah blah, I have excuses for him, but I'm fine with that. So I've been like disagreeing with all your other suggestions to move people, so I'm ready to give. And yeah, Merzlikins, you're down to tier 5. Sorry. Okay. Let's go to tier 6 now. So these are still guys who I expect to be starters, but like I wouldn't bet huge money on it. Like these are guys that like it wouldn't be shocking to me if they're not the starter, but like I expect them to be the starter, and I expect all 3 of them to have like great upside. If they are the starters and they play like the same number of games that a starter does, I think it's possible. These could be your real, like you said, tier 4 is the value round. Tier 6 is for me a value round. Like I think tier 5 actually is more like reliable games, with Anderson, Markstrom, Merzlikins, and Binnington, but I might actually prefer to just wait and get one of these tier 6 guys and really take the risk. So here's the 3 guys I have here. Be curious to know what you think, of course. Phoenix Copley in LA. I just don't have much confidence in Cam Talbot. Like I think LA is gonna hope they're hoping that Talbot is something. Like I personally just don't think he is, and I think that he's going to continue to struggle, and which is going to lead them to have to rely on Copley, which maybe they don't want to do, but I think they might have to. And LA is looking like a really strong team, like maybe even one of the best teams in the West. So especially after getting Pierre-Luc Dubois, so I think there's huge upside there. Then we have Adin Hill in Vegas, who he just led them to the Cup. They just gave him a new contract. Obviously, Logan Thompson is there, and he was supposed to be the goalie of the future, but like after what Adin Hill did last year, like I'm pretty sure Adin Hill is playing like opening night, right? Like I think that he's who they see as the starter until he loses the job, considering he just took them to a Stanley Cup. I think you earn like Cam Ward had a lot of bad years in Carolina and still like was the starter, even though I know you on the podcast, Brian, would always say how Cam Ward shouldn't be the starter. And like you'd be like Anton Hudobin should steal the job from him, but like it never happened. And I think a lot of it had to do with Cam Ward leading to them to that cup, right? So I just think Adin Hill has earned himself a lot of goodwill. So I don't know if he's like better than Logan Thompson. Maybe they just go 50-50, but I think Hill starts as the starter. But again, like this is the tier where I'm not like going to bet on it. And then the third one, this is maybe a long shot, but I know our friend of the pod, Victor Nuno, is really high on him. Devon Levi over in Buffalo. So like they also have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and they also have Eric Comrie. But like Levy is like a Dustin Wolf to me, like a guy who just has like an impeccable track record. He's like one of the highest pedigree goalie prospects, and like there's not competition. Like Dustin Wolf is still behind this like huge contract of Jacob Markstrom. Like Levi like really just could walk in and be the starter. Like Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen hasn't proven anything. Eric Comrie clearly hasn't proven anything, and like Buffalo's looking like they're a team on the up, and Levi looks really good. So again, huge upside here, maybe some downside, but I like him here. So yeah, that's my tier 6: Copley, Hill, and Levi.
Yeah, that's a really big swing on Levi. I just, you think this is the right time to do it?
Like I mean,
if you had Hill and Copley available to you, that would, and Levi, is it Levi?
Yeah.
And Levi, and Hill and Copley were taken, would you be like, shucks, like I am stuck with Levi? Or you'd be like, oh, no problem. I wanted him the same amount.
I guess like it's tough, right? It's so hard to predict. Like I don't have much faith in Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Like he hasn't even been able to really stay healthy. Comrie's not a starter. Levi, like I just feel like there's the path for so much goodness. And I feel like LA, as much as like I liked Copley, I have him in my dynasty league now, got him for free. Thank you very much. But like I don't love that, they benched him for Korpisalo. Like now they've signed Cam Talbot. Like it seems like, I think if LA has their way, it's 50-50, it's just like they're hoping Cam Talbot can hold up. We'll see. And Aiden Hill is like I mean, you say no way, but I think
it's a bad bet, like in my opinion. But I'm sorry I was interrupting you on your way to making a different point.
No, you're right. And like it's the same with Aiden Hill. Like I just feel like Aiden Hill has some challenge, right? Like Thompson is a really good goalie, and last year he was really good, and he was their starter for a lot of the season. So in some ways, I like Levi the best, just because I feel like the upside is there to be like a volume starter potentially. But he could also not make the team. Like I guess it's possible also.
Right. Like if he's not ready, you've got Luukkonen and Comrie both there to like do half decent while Levi still works on his game or whatever. But Luukkonen certainly, like last year, did not show that he was ready to be a starting goalie in the NHL. 895 to be a starting goalie in the NHL. 898 save percentage at 5-on-5 was bad. 9 save points below his expected number. And it's really been rare for Luukkonen to put together any kind of solid stretch in his only 46 games of NHL experience so far. But when you've got Levi breathing like down his neck, there's only so much time he has to be able to show that he's up for the job. So I don't know. We'll see as we go through like tier 7, 8 and on, if there's a better place for Levi. But you're right. I don't know that there is. I just don't know that I would take that swing at this point.
We're talking
in my draft.
tier 6. We're talking like 20 goalies.
20 but like I might look at one of these tier 7 goalies. I might draft. Like the whole idea is like the tier, like you wouldn't draft someone from a lower tier ahead of somebody in a tier above them. I'm not sure I can say that about Levi. I don't even know about Aiden. Like this tier, I'm not a fan of. I'm a fan of Phoenix Copley, actually, because I think he's going to see volume. I don't think the Kings have much of a choice. Cam Talbot it's been a long time since we've seen much of anything from Cam Talbot. And sure, maybe he had a lot of vacation time last year, nursing injuries and whatever. And Copley himself is not a slam dunk at all. Like he was really strong for like a quarter or a third of the season. And then the rest of the year was like, to like not great. So I'm not 100% sure that Copley is going to be ready to keep taking on a workload, but I do look at his, I was just talking about Luukkonen's 50 career games. Copley has like 60 something, and overall he's been good in them. Like he's consistently played above his expected number. So I think that's enough reason for me to have some faith in Copley. I would take Copley ahead of Hill, ahead of Levi. He's like my third value pick with Grubauer and Korpisalo in the mocks. I just don't know if I could move Copley. I might move Copley up to tier 5. He just doesn't seem to belong here because I like him more than the other guys who I don't love a whole lot, but I can't really situate them completely until we get to tier 7. But I know you're like, we have had this conversation before, and I know your point on Copley is he's lost the job once, he can lose the job again.
I think it's never been his job. Like he only had the job because there was literally no other goalie there. Like Quick and Peterson were just so bad they had no choice. I don't think Copley has ever been mentioned as a starting goalie, like, by anyone in the organization. So, but okay. I still have him here. But I mean, I'm gonna put my foot down for Devin Levi. I think that I'm not gonna put him down.
You should. Well, Mason in the chat is saying like, these are guys that you are drafting like really late in your draft, like tier 6. We're down to like, this is our, like 26th, 27th goalie. So if you're in a 14 team league and everybody's drafting on average 2 goalies, like this is the bottom. And some of the tier 7 guys will probably have been drafted to either auto drafted or like by someone hoping. So yeah, late draft swing for sure. Like these guys make sense. You've got the cup winning goalie on a team that's going to contend again in Adin Hill. You've got Copley, who has upside to be a starter on a good LA team, and you've got Devin Levi, who has upside to be a starter with it's his job to take, it seems, if he's ready for it on a team that is also on the upswing.
Okay, so moving on to tier 7. Actually, Brian, let's take one last break, okay? And then we're going to get through the rest of this list of every single goalie that we think is going to play games this year. So we'll be back soon with the goalies who we still have a couple guys I think could be starters, but not guys I don't want to draft necessarily. We'll be back soon. All right, we are back, Brian. Tier 7. I'm splitting tier 7 into like a 7A and 7B, depending on what you want to go for. The A's are guys who are starters, but I wouldn't trust them. Like I wouldn't want to draft them and depend on them to play well or to even like hold the job, or I don't know. And then 7B are like the opposite, like backups who I think are really good and like could potentially steal the job. So here's my list. I'll be curious to know where you agree or disagree. The 2 7A guys I'm throwing in here, Vejmelka and John Gibson. So last year, like surprisingly, maybe Connor Ingram was like pretty good for Arizona and ended up like getting a lot more starts than I wanted him to, as someone who had traded for Vejmelka in my dynasty league. So Vejmelka comes in, like I assume he's the presumptive starter on Arizona again, but I'm scared of Connor Ingram, and also I'm scared of just Arizona in general. And like it's just like not a guy you want to depend on, but he's had good games for sure. Like there's been stretches where Vejmelka's a goalie who I'd love to see on another team and see like how he would do like away from Arizona. Maybe we'll find out one day. And then John Gibson, come on, like it's been a long time since John Gibson has been someone you want to depend on in fantasy. So, but he's a starting goalie. There's value. Okay. Then here's my 7Bs. Or do you want to comment on the 7As?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm just going to step in and echo what you said. These are goalies with upside on teams with a lot of downside. And these goalies have a lot of downside too. Gibson, like you said, Elon, it's been a long time. And like Gibson is somebody the last couple of years, the last long while, I've been open to taking John Gibson late. And I feel like I'm starting to move past that. Although when I do look at Gibson's like numbers under the hood, he has been like, he's basically played similar to Tristan Jarry with less protection. So and if Anaheim is about to be on the upswing, like I want to be in on that. But again, it's been a long time since Gibson's done a whole lot for us. And Vejmelka's, like you said, I'd love to see what he could do on a different team. Yeah, I think if you're desperate for volume, like if you need minimum starts and you're in trouble of not getting them, you could grab Gibson or Vejmelka, or saves are big, like carry a lot of weight in your format. But otherwise, it's very much buyer beware with these guys. Like you could go for it, but don't feel like I have felt at times over the last several seasons where it's like, oh, I could get sneaky good value with these. Like this is like a real, at this point, Gibson and Vejmelka are pretty bottom of the barrel type picks.
Yeah. Okay. So then for 7B, these are goalies now who like I said, are backups to start the year, but like I wouldn't be shocked if they steal the job and end up being like really great steals, but they could also just end up staying backups. So, it's up to you if you want to take that risk. But I've got a few guys here, actually. 1, 2, 3, 6 guys to throw at you. Okay. So I'll just name them all. Logan Thompson on Vegas. He was a starter for most of last year, who's really good. If Adin Hill falters, I wouldn't be obviously he'll get a little rope having won a cup, but he's not going to get infinite rope. Like Vegas wants to repeat, right? So if Logan Thompson is better, I could see him stealing the job. Jeremy Swayman in Boston. This one's not as much maybe steal the job as like just get to 50-50 and be really good. So hard not to have him here in this list. There you go, Patty. We brought him up before. Akira Schmid on New Jersey. If Vanacek falters, I think Schmid is next in line. And he was really great last year, 922 save percentage in his 18 games. So he seems ready if called upon. Next up, Joel Hofer. Sorry, I have 7 guys. I got a lot of guys here. Joel Hofer on St. Louis. I mean, St. Louis, they have Binnington. That's why I like Joel Hofer here, because Binnington could get Binningtoned. Next up, I got to mention him here. Jack Campbell. I mean, he has a huge contract. I'm sure Edmonton would love for, like, I think they'll give him a shot again. Like Brian said, I don't have that much confidence in him, but I think Edmonton would love to give him a shot. And maybe he's practicing really hard in the summer and regaining, whatever he had in Toronto that helped him earn this contract. So I think there's definitely a chance that Campbell can steal the job. I personally don't think he will, but I think he can. Same with Cam Talbot. As we've already discussed, I don't have much faith in him, but I think he's going to be given an opportunity. And then Marc-Andre Fleury, who we've also already talked about, obviously. I think if he, Minnesota would, he's Marc-Andre Fleury, right? You can't count him out. People who have done it before have been incorrect to do so. Those are my 7 Bs. Thompson, Swayman, Schmid, Hofer, Campbell, Talbot, Fleury. Are you good with this list? Do you want to move anyone up or down?
I mean, we've talked about all of these guys by proxy, more or less by like in talking about their partner. Like Campbell. Well, you know what? I don't have much to add. Talbot, I feel like he might belong more in the next tier down, in tier 8. But like Logan, like this is an upside tier, right? Because as much as the guys we've already talked about are likely to get the most starts off the top, some of these guys could earn more, namely Akira Schmid. Jeremy Swayman could be legit as valuable as Linus Allmark. Logan Thompson could earn back. And Marc-Andre Fleury, I'm actually checking in our Discord server in our episode discussion. I guess Chris is watching, but is posting there instead of in the chat. He mentioned that Minnesota has more back-to-backs than almost any team this season. So that could mean that Marc-Andre Fleury, that helps Marc-Andre Fleury towards a 50-50 workload. Chris also pointed out that Bobrovsky and Markstrom have like amongst the fewest back-to-back, or I should say Calgary and Florida have amongst the fewest back-to-back. So something else to keep in mind when you're picking goalies, of course. But yeah, Elon, I think you've got this right. I think one guy who I would add into this tier is Joseph Woll in Toronto. I just think that he might have as good a shot as Akira Schmid or Cam Talbot or Jack Campbell at stealing starts and being able to outplay their number one. In fact, I think I've already made the case he has a better chance than Jack Campbell to do that. Probably a similar chance to Akira Schmid, or a slightly lower one. That's the whole. Once again, it's Samsonov versus Vanacek.
Always eternal. Okay, I'm sold. So Woll joins tier 7B here. And again, it's like if you want to take Vejmelka or Gibson over these guys, you're probably getting more starts, but good luck to you. So it depends what you're going for. All right, tier 8. So I've got 3 teams here where I just don't know who the starter is. I don't really care that much. Like I don't want the goalie either way, but like there's a chance you can get a starting goalie. So there's 3 teams for people who have been listening carefully. There's 3 teams we haven't mentioned yet. And those are San Jose, Chicago, and Montreal. And I'm throwing their goalies in tier 8 here. So for San Jose, we've got Kaapo Kakkonen and Mackenzie Blackwood, both like bad last year. San Jose, I think, might be the worst team in the league. Maybe them or Anaheim. And I don't even know who's going to be the starter between the two of them. I guess Blackwood probably is the backup to start. We'll see. I don't know. Okay. Chicago, Petr Mrazek is there still. I think Mrazek is the starter, but does he even, like, he's going to get injured a lot. Chicago's still bad. And then they have Arvid Soderblom, who's like apparently like a pretty highly regarded prospect. But again, he's like the backup going into the season on Chicago. So I'm not like getting too excited about him. And then Montreal, Jake Allen, Sam Montembeault. They also traded for Casey DeSmith. I don't know if I like Allen and Montembeault to be the 2. And then I think they're better than DeSmith. I don't know. They also have Caden Primo. Okay. So yeah, the tier 8, it's like, I don't even want these guys. I had to put them somewhere. So tier 8, the San Jose, Chicago, and Montreal goalies. So Brian, any thoughts there?
Yeah, well, like the thought
Anyone
is
you
that,
like here?
No, there's no one I like here. I mean, like maybe if I were to pick a team here, I'd pick Montreal. I had no faith in Sam Montembeault up until late last year. Jake Allen, I did have faith in, but I've lost it completely. There's a chance he gets it together again. And my frustration is that like these bottom tier teams don't have like a volume starter that is going to start. I don't know that we've ever had so many teams expected to do badly and with like an unknown, like a 50-50 assumed timeshare going into the season. So yeah, Elon, I don't like any of these guys. I definitely don't like the San Jose guys. Like that's Kakkonen and Blackwood are a total tank tandem. Mrazek and Soderblom, could have good games here and there. And Allen and Montembeault, those, like I said, those are the ones I'm most interested in seeing of this group. I think I'd take a chance on them before any of the others.
Okay, fair. Yeah, just gotta hope you get the right one. I'm hoping for this guy Dobesh in Montreal's system. I have him in my dynasty league. I'm hoping
you don't say.
I don't think he's next year, but he had a good year in college last year. I think he's going to be on the Rocket, Laval Rocket next year. And some people have said that Dobic has overtaken Primo as the Habs' best prospect goalie. So we'll see, but not next year. That's maybe in a couple of years. Okay, Brian. So we're going to tier 9 now. These are like goalies. So remember 7B were like backups who I think have an okay chance to steal the job. So tier 9 is guys who I like don't really expect them to steal the job, but they're backups I find interesting. Backups that like intrigue me a bit, like more than like tier 10 and 11, which are like not. Okay, so here's my tier 9 guys that I'll throw at you. So basically, yeah, backups I find interesting. That's the best way I could label them. You could let me know if any of them don't deserve to be here, whatever. I'll give you my reasons for each one as I go. Then you could comment on the ones you feel like it. So number 1, Spencer Knight. Come on, he's interesting. So super high pedigree guy. Bobrovsky struggles a lot. Interesting.
Do we know if he's back for this season?
I think I saw like something saying he's ready to go. Like I think he is.
As far as I know, he's still tweets. He's still in the player assistance program, according to Cap Friendly.
Okay. We have a tweet here from David Dwork. I just had to, it was so quick, by the way, to go to Game Day Tweets, just search for Knight and I get all the latest tweet news about him. So Spencer Knight will take part in the Panthers development camp that kicks off tomorrow in Coral Springs. More on the plan. Okay, so that was like, so he did that. That was on July 9th. On June 21st, Bill Zito said he talks to Spencer Knight frequently. He's doing well. We expect him back in the fall. So that's what Bill Zito said.
Okay.
Back in June. I think he's back. I don't know. He's interesting to me. Maybe one day he'll be the starter in Florida still.
He's interesting. He's still like, and coming out of like a player assistance program. Like I think let's just leave it be until we see him. Like,
but hey, Verona came out and he did really well when he got to St. Louis. So
yeah, like you could also talk about Robin. Like you could talk about guys going, like realizing that, hey, like there's something in my life that's not working, sorting it out, coming back and trying to climb the mountain again and like reach the upside that everyone thought was there in the first place. So I guess that'll be what we're looking for. But for now, let's wait till he's back and see how he's doing. But I would love to see, I love to see anyone get another chance.
Of course, yeah. I mean, he's still super young also, and like really high pedigree. Okay, so next up, Dustin Wolf. Throwing him out there. He might not even be in the NHL to start the year, but like he's definitely interesting to me. And as soon as he gets called up, if he doesn't make the team, like jump on him, I think. And if he does make the team and he's like the backup and he's not drafted in your league, like the moment he's announced for his first game, like add him as a spot start and then like go from there. We'll see how he does. Okay. I'm really into him. Okay. Next, Connor Ingram, like low key, really good season last year. Like considering he was on Arizona, we didn't even have him tiered. He had a 907 save percentage. He played 27 games. He's interesting to me. I think he could, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 50-50 with Vejmelka. It wouldn't shock me. Anton Forsberg. There was this moment in time when we thought he was the future starter for Ottawa. Now they've got Korpisalo, but he's still interesting to me. Like he's got to be fully recovered from that terrible injury he had. What was it? Double knee injuries?
Oh yeah, both his knees got completely wrecked at the same time. Brutal.
Okay, then we've got the Carolina guys. I don't know, Kochikov and Ranta. Like one of them might steal the job. Probably not Ranta, but he's still good when he plays usually. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen on Buffalo. So I'm taking my swing on Wolf, like I said, or sorry, not on Wolf, on Levi. But Luukkonen easily could like just be the starter. Like at one point we thought he was the future starter, and he was really bad last year, but maybe he'll be better next year. So he's interesting to me. Joey Decord just took Seattle's minor league team to the finals of the AHL. He was apparently really good. He earned himself a contract. So, and Grubauer, I know, Brian, you want to move him up even to whatever, tier 2, but like, I'm kidding. But yeah, like Grubauer still has struggled a lot. So I wouldn't be shocked if Decord like pulls a Martin Jones. Then we've got Tarasov, who, Brian, you talked about before, saying you think he could still start from Merzlikins. And then Laurent Brossoit on Winnipeg, who interests me because Connor Hellebuck is on the last year of his contract. And if Winnipeg struggles, they might trade him. And then Brossoit, all of a sudden, could become the starter. So definitely someone to have on my radar. So there's my tier 9. And anyone there you want to speak on?
I like what you said about Connor Ingram in Arizona. Like, we mentioned all those bad tandems on bad teams. Ingram and Vejmelka could perform equally or better to them. Ranta still like has generally been a good goalie for the majority of his career. So he's not someone that you could usually look away. Like he could, same way Swayman could be as good as Allmark. Ranta could be as good as Anderson, except of course, there's that injury risk. Luukkonen, if there's any chance that he can step up and be the goalie we want him to be in Buffalo, that would be great. Tarasov, we've already talked about. And I think that covers all the guys that I wanted to at least add a small piece on. I mean, you've got Joey Decord in Seattle and Chris Streetker, who could step up and do something, but I can't really lend much more to that because of my earlier Grubauer advocacy.
Sure. No, I'm with you. I think Grubauer is probably the starter there. Solid tier 4 goalie, Philip Grubauer, in my opinion. Okay, tier 10, still not the worst of the worst. These are backups I find less interesting, but not the least interesting. So I'll throw them out there. Pavel Francouz, we've talked before. I think he's good. Like he's clearly the backup, but I think he's like a great spot start. Colorado's good. Nedeljkovic, who Brian, you might even be higher on. Maybe you would put him in tier 9 as a goalie you think might even challenge Tristan Jarry, as you said before. Dostal in Anaheim, honestly, I think he's good. It's just like Anaheim stinks anyway. So even if he does steal starts, I don't even care that much for next year. Maybe in a couple years when Anaheim's going to be great, when their prospects come in. Varlamov on the Islanders, I mean, he's not the worst, right? He's still really good. Like he had a .913 save percentage last year, but just like Sorokin is clearly going to play a lot of the games. Reimer in Detroit, just because Husso like hasn't really cemented himself. So that I think there could be some interest in Reimer. Like not a great situation for Detroit if that happens, but yeah. Lindgren in Washington. I don't know. Maybe I should put him in tier 11. But yeah, he had a few good games in Washington last year when Kemper was injured.
Lindgren to me, like, I don't know why. He's just someone who I think might be able to do more if given the opportunity. And sometimes Kemper gives opportunities. So true. I might like, we don't need to, but I might move Lindgren and Nedeljkovic up a tier to like tier 9.
Why not? I don't care.
You're tired of saying no to me.
Well, no, also I just like, I mean, I'm not going to argue about whether Lindgren should be in tier 9 or tier 10.
Understood.
I do like Kevin Lankinen, by the way. So on Nashville, he's the last one I'm putting in tier 10 here. He had a .916 save percentage last year. Like for next season, like he's not that interesting because Saros is going to play a ton of games, but then his contract will be up. And I don't know. I think there's still something here and I'd like to see it one day, but he was good. He's a good backup and he's a good spot start, I think. So I have him as not the least interesting. Do you want to mention any of these, anything more about these tier 10 guys? So I guess what's left here is Francouz, Dostal, Varlamov, Reimer, and Lankinen before I get to the guys that are totally uninteresting to me.
I guess there was a moment that Dostal was somebody who we thought like could do well if Gibson keeps struggling. Yeah. And I still think that possibility is there. I just don't know if Anaheim is together enough yet for him to really come in and find like some stable footing. So I guess it's something to keep an eye on. Like you could have him on your watch list, but like these are all real deep cuts. And Elon, for full disclosure, is Lankinen still on your dynasty team?
No, he's not.
Okay.
So, but he was good last year. He's the highest save percentage of everyone in this tier from last year. So can't put him in the bottom. Mason is saying merge all the last 4 tiers and label it do not draft. Like, okay, Mason, but like this is like for some people are in super deep leagues. So we're trying to cover everybody here. But yeah, for sure for a couple, hopefully we're not trying to convince anyone to draft like Nedeljkovic or Lindgren because we moved them to tier 9. Okay, tier 11, Brian. These are goalies that I expect to be the backups, play games, but like no interest at all. So you could just tell me if you disagree about any of them. Dan Vladar in Calgary, we've talked about. Jonas Johansson in Tampa, who was once called by the Buffalo beat writer the worst goal he's ever seen. Cal Peterson, I think he'll be the backup in Philly. He's making a lot of money. He's making $5 million a year, but he stinks. Spencer Martin in Vancouver. Eric Comrie in Buffalo. I guess he like has some upset. Like going into last season, some people thought he might be the starter in Buffalo, but he was really bad. Wedgwood on Dallas and Jonathan Quick. I'm putting Jonathan Quick last. I have no interest in Jonathan Quick. I can't believe he got another contract. But yeah, that's a good luck to the Rangers. When if I used to think that the Rangers were going to let in a lot of goals when Georgiev played, like just wait till Jonathan Quick comes in.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like very little faith. Although remember, he had like 3 really good games in Vegas. So maybe he'll have 3 really good games as a Ranger too. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll finish this off with tier X. These are goalies that I expect to be in the minors to start the year. But like, I think they might play. So I'll just mention just some names to mention, just to throw out there to finish the show. Sam Ersson played some games for Philly last year. Seemed okay. I don't know. He was like, I could see him being something. Also, they have Felix Sandstrom, who was the backup last year to start. But now they have Cal Peterson. So my hunch is Peterson is the backup, but who knows? Anyways, you brought up Chris Driedger. I put him here. I think he's going to lose out to Joey Decord, but I guess it could go the other way. Casey DeSmith on Montreal. Stolars, we mentioned on Florida. So you like Stolars, so maybe he's good. I don't know. I think he'll start in the minors. There's a guy, Jackson Stauber on Chicago, who Mrazek's going to get injured at some point, so Stauber will probably come in and play some games. that Silovs guy on Vancouver that we mentioned, Mad Sogard in Ottawa. So, he might play. He didn't do that well last year when he did play. And then Martin Jones is the backup or the third stringer on Toronto. So had to at least mention Martin Jones.
I will say, I think if one of these guys sees significant time this year, I think it could be Sogard. He's who is supposed to take over the Ottawa net at some point in the future. Clearly, they've invested in Korpisalo for now, but I could see Korpisalo potentially not working out, Forsberg potentially not working out, and Ottawa really not wanting to miss the playoffs again. With all the promise that they have in the rest of their lineup, you don't want to be submarined by goaltending. So Sogard wasn't ready last year. I assume he's still not ready this year, but I'm just, if we got to talk about tier X here, that's the guy who I see most likely to end up playing some NHL games.
All right, Brian. Well, this is it. We made it through the 10th Smörgoåliesbord. Look at not many arguments. I feel like we did a really good job here. Obviously, we'll find out at the end of the season if we did a good job in terms of these goalie tiers, but I'm pretty happy with it. Hope people enjoyed the show. Once again, it's not too late to sign up and play in the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. You could read about it at kkupfl.com. This is a league we're running. We're already up 500 plus signups. Who knows how many we'll end up with, but everyone's going to get in. You'll all be in leagues of 14 teams. And if you do well, you're going to climb up you're going to start at the bottom tier. And then as you play, you're going to move up. And if you're doing well, next thing you know, you could be challenging Ryan to be the ultimate couple champion. So who knows what can happen. You got to come in and play. It's a lot of fun. We've got so many cool things. We were just having a chat today how Kevin is creating player cards. Can we announce this, Brian?
Manager cards. Yeah, there is data. If you manage a team in the cupful, there is a card with your name on it or your Discord name on it, showing your complete cupful history, your highs, your lows, your everything in between, where you finished,
it's gonna be so
where
cool.
You ranked in the fast track, including this latest one that he's added, which is your most added players, the players that you have, for me, the Gustav Nyquist and Mikhail Granlunds and who those guys. Whoever you find yourself bringing out of free agency, it's really it should be really fun. So
I mean, as someone who collected hockey cards religiously as a kid, this is very exciting that I'm gonna have my own card. I'm printing this out.
Yeah, now to think how we can make them limited edition and have people collect cupful manager cards.
I'm gonna X out last season though. I'm just gonna kind of
hey, mine is grim, Elon. Please, mine is NSFW.
I was good before that. I blame my baby. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, if you want to play, that's one of many reasons you should come play. So just become a patron at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. Go to, then you come into our Discord and you click one button and you're in the cupful. It's beautiful. All right. And once again, reminder to the existing patrons that we love you and thank you so much. And we hope that you will continue to support us as we get into this season, which we're very excited about. But Brian, with that, let's close out our August of podcasting by cueing the outro music. Why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey. And, when we don't have a show doc going, I forget that I need to load it. So if you want, I'll start clean. Is it easier if I start clean? Okay.
Sure. Or you could just go from presented by Dobber Hockey and just go from there.
Yeah, well, I give a clean cut.
Yeah, it's easy cut.
Whatever's easiest for you.
And supported by our patrons, including our super supporters.
Presented by Dobber Hockey. And powered by our patrons, including our super supporters. Patrick, thanks for becoming a super supporter. Aaron, Ivan, Andrea, Zachary, Tom, Derek, David, Rob, Max, Ricard. And of course, Patty, who is here with us in the chat. Great presence, as always. Thank you to Kevin, working so hard, helping us get Cupful Season 9 set up, kkupfl.com. There's one more. Elon, you mentioned Game Day Tweets. Thank you for maintaining that, along with Shams Benamor. GameDayTweets.com. Again, is BrandonWeeb.com does our logos and also has made some cool custom emoji for this season of the Cupful 2. So you can find that out more on Brandon at BrandonWeeb.com, former Tier 1 competitor. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dauber prospects. I'll just say them all. Natural, Stat Trick, Evolving, Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, hockeygoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and also shout out to Fantrax for hosting all our amazing and fun mock drafts.
Yeah, and Kevin's mock draft ADP sheet, which I did not use to come up with the tiers. I didn't want to bias myself by looking at just what the patrons have been doing, but I did use it like in this episode, of course, to reference it. But okay, Brian, that was great. So much fun. I believe next week we're coming back to do some more tiers, this time with defense. I believe next week is our newly minted Charcuter D episode. So, I guess name pending, but so far I like it. That was Ryan, a couple Ultimate Champion, who came up with that. But yeah, so everyone make sure you're subscribed to Keeping Karlsson to get that and all the other cool episodes we have coming as we get you ready for the next fantasy season. And while we wait for that and all of the content that we have planned, what should we all do in the meantime?
Please keep doing all you can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone.
See ya. Bye. All right. Good show. Thanks everyone in the chat. This was so fun.
Good job. I hope it was good.
I think it was good.
I hope it held up. I think it was good too.
Oh,
sometimes I don't know. It's a little more off the cuff.
KK_498. Oh, I wanted Smörgoåliesbord to be 500. We messed up.
It's not too late to record 2 really short episodes.
Okay. Well, I gotta go to bed. So I don't know. We'll get Smörgoåliesbord as the episode 1,000 one day.
Oh God.
In 10 years. All right. See you, Brian.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Thanks for being